All right, welcome to episode 65 of the PoddyC. Probably slightly shorter than episode 64 of the PoddyC. That was over 4 hours, I think. Yeah.
That was a banger. I was surprised by how well the episode did.
We definitely did miss a few things. I think the biggest thing, which a bunch of comments correctly pointed out about that episode, was that there's kind of two different things that you might mean when you say Wowhead commenter. Because there are the people who go into the comments under like an item or achievement and then put like a guide in there for how to do it. And those people are goated for sure.
Objectively helpful. Yeah, great people.
I thought that's what I mentioned. Did I mention that?
Well, I thought, yeah.
Maybe, but I don't listen to you very much.
Yeah, someone on the episode, I think I remember hearing that feedback. Or maybe it was in the like pre-episode, maybe, when we were talking about the thing. But I do remember someone bringing it up that there are some like very benevolent Wowhead commenters that are just objectively good people.
I was saying how there are like some actually really good Wowhead comments, but obviously that's not who we were specifically talking about. We were talking about the people on like whenever there's a new post saying like, oh, buffs and nerfs to classes, and then you just have that one idiot saying, where's my hunter buff?
Yeah. There was a couple others. I really wish I would have remembered them, but there was a couple of times where people were like, you totally forgot about this person. And then they briefly describe them, and I'm like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, that was like, I mean, we did a 4-hour thing, so we covered a lot of WoW archetypes, but there were a few, and I wish I would have remembered them that were like so dead on. Like, holy shit, you see this person all the time, and we missed it.
Oh, the one I wanted to include was Boosty and Boosted.
Yeah,
or Booster.
I mentioned it during the like second half of our record or whatever, but then we forgot to do it at the end.
Well, let's do it now.
All right.
Wait, what do you mean the boosty and the booster? What are your general thoughts on it, Dorki? So you just mean the person that is getting boosted in content versus the person that does the boosting?
Yeah. It's got to be negative, right?
How so?
Well, because nobody likes boosters. Like they, for the most part, are bad for the game.
Yeah,
like it invalidates the achievements of people who actually earned, say, title or cutting edge or whatever it is, or the cutting edge mount.
I think on the M plus side, it's worse because like you're taking away a title slot from somebody.
If you're boosting it, that makes sense. I was thinking more raid boosting, and I think it's mostly harmless. Like the person that hates the raid boosty is the person who gets like cutting edge Hall of Fame boosted. That person is harmless. Like that, like whether someone has that and it doesn't change anything, right? They're not taking that spot from anyone. Why do you care if someone else acquired gold and then got that, right? But I think it's the person that maybe like claims that they did it. Like, hey, I achieved this, but they're just lying about it. I can tell you from this has happened before with us. We've done carries and like someone will reach out to me and be like, hey, this guy like said they were in liquid. Could you confirm that? And I'm like, no, obviously they weren't. And then I don't know how many times that's happened and someone didn't even bother reaching out to me because that's a very obviously public and like researchable thing, whether that was true or not. But it's really rare. Like I think most people who buy things, get things, I guess they're the boosty, right? The boosty, they are they don't have the time, but they want the achievement and they pay for it. And I don't know if that is negative to anyone really. Unless I guess they're really obnoxious about it, which I think is again something is pretty memorable, but I think pretty rare.
Yeah, it's definitely rare. I mean, so for M plus side, it's also if you have boosted 14s, you can probably get into 14 keys easier, and maybe you don't really belong in 14s. So that is a problem to a lot of players.
That sounds really bad.
Yeah, and on the raid side, right? Like even just getting boosted to AOTC and then using like AOTC is kind of hard. Getting boosted to AOTC costs like 500k or something, right? And then maybe less now, right? Like that price goes down over time pretty rapidly. And then you get invited. But on the other hand, the people who are requiring AOTC for invites to stuff that shouldn't require AOTC are also not great, right? So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of, there's ickiness on a lot of sides with the whole boosting thing.
The booster goated.
Yeah.
I would say.
Right, of course.
I feel pretty strongly that the people doing booster are excellent people.
Yeah, I mean, on a kind of big picture level, the idea of an MMO where you can like play the auction house and then use your gold that you earned from that to, pay a group of adventurers to slay a dragon for you is kind of, that's kind of awesome, right? That's kind of like the heart of a, thriving MMO economy. But
That's
then
why
there's definitely a
boosting
lot of
never be removed.
yeah,
Right? Like that's like people are like, well, boosting should be banned. It's like it's kind of the fundamental concept of like MMOs is why boosting exists. You can do that. Now, a lot of people will be cynical and be like, well, no one's actually just playing the auction house. They're just like buying WoW tokens or
Right.
buying gold. And a lot of the times you're right.
Yeah.
And before there was a WoW token, they were buying it just as much, just illicitly. That's a real thing, that sucks. No one else like literally pay to winning in that case is a little tough.
Yeah, and even people who do boosting often we do boosting because there are a lot of gold costs associated with the content we do, right? And would we prefer a world where those costs didn't exist and then we didn't do boosting? Yeah,
Bro,
right?
this patch is so bad, by the way. The tariffs are hitting so hard. Like, consumables are so goddamn expensive.
Tariffs.
It's awful, man. Like, I don't even know how I play M Plus nowadays. I swear to God, consumables are so ridiculously expensive. Gems and enchants, all that stuff. It's out of control. I need to start boosting my ass off. People are gonna hate me for
the
it.
thing is it like repeats itself, right? Like if you so someone in my chat asked me like, what would you do if boosting was banned? And I was like, I don't really know what else we would do. Like that's like the most efficient way to get gold. You'd have to find a new way to get gold, but also it would completely change the market. If boosting wasn't in the game, that would remove so much gold that like everything would cost so much less.
Yeah, like a huge percent because of how expensive the boosts are. Even though they're rare, right? Like a boosting transaction is a lot rarer than anything else in the game. It's for like 10 million gold sometimes, right? Like if you're buying a cutting edge, especially early in a patch, right? You're paying gold caps, right? And that is just such a high chunk of where gold's value comes from for a lot of players is they're involved on one side or the other of a boosting exchange. So yeah, it would change the economy in a big way.
It costs us about 1 billion gold in fees every time we do a race by paying helpers, buying BUEs, which there's almost none of this time. It's like almost that, right? So every 5 months we're just putting 1 billion gold into the hands of just regular WoW raiders that help us in our runs. And that would be almost completely removed, or those numbers would be significantly less, and then that's how markets work, right? They all like adjust off of that.
I will say one thing I've been really hating about how people use their gold recently is there's a lot of item buying in raids. It causes this whole culture of every single person just need rolling on every single possible item, and whenever they win it, they're just trying to sell it. Like Curios in raid or House of Cards, right? If you manage to loot a House of Cards, you'll get like 10 people whispering you, can I buy that? Can I buy that? Can I buy that? So it incentivizes players to not ever pass on loot they don't need. Like everyone's just needing on loot that they don't even need, and it's really annoying because everyone's just trying to make gold out of it, which makes sense. But like this wasn't a thing before.
Well, was this so I actually am trying to figure out how this works. So if you have a House of Cards on heroic eye level, at least how it's supposed to work, I think, is you cannot roll need and win on House of Cards that drops on heroic, correct?
Unless it drops with a turt, which is funny.
Unless it drops with a tertiary. Okay, interesting. So basically the people that are doing that are people who either need House of Cards or are loot eligible for it, but don't actually want the trinket.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they'll
or
roll
like
need
say
on it just to sell it to people.
Yeah, or say like like you're a Mistweaver main, but you can roll on agility staff, and you'll just do it because like you can sell it off. So you're just gonna need on it anyways.
So I think how that works is I believe you can roll need on all things that are on your off spec or not your main loot spec, but you will not win that item over someone who is rolling for it on their main.
But you can set your loot spec too.
Yeah, you can go into a boss and you can be like, oh yeah, this one drops the Agi staff. I'm loot spec Windwalker.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And there's
it's
no
really
way to
common with
combat
tank
that.
trinkets. Yeah, because like as a tank, like so there's only 2 tanks in raid, right? But you have all these bunch of idiots that like will set their loot to tank loot spec for a certain boss that drops tank trinkets because that makes you loot eligible. And if they manage to win the loot, like they're not going to need it, but they'll take it anyways to try to sell it off.
That's kind of like, go ahead, Darren, Dratnos.
Well, it's just like there's a hierarchy of needs as well, right? Like if you roll on a tank trinket that's 30 ruined crests for you, right? Like say a Gallywix heroic tank trinket, you haven't upgraded all those in that slot, and that tank trinket then represents like saving crest for you. is your need greater? Like, should you be allowed to roll need on that against somebody who is actually a tank and wants to use that thing for M plus or whatever, or for raid, right? Like, it's a good tank trinket. Same with, like, I saw there was a big discussion on Reddit about LFR. People, like, Mythic Raider goes into LFR and rolls need on an item because they want the Mog. And it's like, is that sketchy? Yeah. Is that allowed? You know, there's a transmog button, but the transmog button's lower prio. Like, why is an LFR? Why is a Mythic Raider coming into LFR? Why is their want for an item less valid than, you know, LFR Raider? If they couldn't roll need on it, they just wouldn't do the LFR, right? They would just come back and get it when it's legacy content. So no matter what happens, you're going to be in an LFR raid with 24 other people who want something out of LFR, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be there. But it's, I don't know, like, there's a lot of ways that the current loot system make people feel bad. I actually think personal loot for everything except for Mythic made this better, because personal loot removed that element of you seeing the item and deciding what to roll need on it, and then seeing that another person decided to roll need on it, right? Instead, it would just put it in somebody's bags, and then you'd have the thing of like, oh, this person's not willing to trade it or whatever, but like, it would feel less icky to give away.
It feels less icky, even though I believe it's the same thing.
It is pretty much the same thing.
Like if you're in a run, let's just use the trinket example, House of Cards, or if you went tank loot spec to get the tank trinket and you rolled need on it, I believe in personal loot that exact same thing happens. That other person ends up with the tank trinket, and
the game just does it for you.
Yeah, the game just does it for you.
There's a couple of different things. First of all, with the current system, you have to be willing to click need. So if you're a good actor, you kind of get punished. You don't get as much gold because if you're somebody like me, I feel bad about rolling need on something that I don't need, so I don't roll need on it, even though I could maybe, you know, my expected value is like, if I click this need button, maybe I'm getting 50,000 gold or something off of the chance that I win it and sell it, right? Like, so that's, I think, a downside. It does also have the weird thing, like you said, Max, of being loot eligible, right? Like, I can't roll need on this House of Cards that I don't need because I have one, whereas I could if I was just on a character that didn't have one. I actually kind of actively don't want to get this item on this character if I'm trying to just make gold from doing heroic runs and selling the items so that I can keep rolling need on it, right? Which is kind of funny, like, thing about it. I don't know. It is definitely icky.
Yeah, because, like, historically, loot culture, the way it worked is, all right, you know, if you needed something, then you would roll need. If you just, like, wanted it for whatever reason, then you would put greed. And that's how it's always worked, right? For, like, I don't even know how long it's been, but it's been like a long time where that's the culture of how you're supposed to do loot. But it's just like nowadays, there's no point in ever doing that. It's you need whatever you can, and then you try to pawn it off, or you're using it for transmog, or, you know, whatever other purposes.
Well, how do they fix it? Because, like,
I mean, that's more of like a culture thing rather than
but like people,
it's like the players have to figure it out themselves.
Yeah, but the incentive is,
that's like saying, like, Blizzard, like, oh, Blizzard should just, like, people should just know not to exploit. Well, it's like, well, if Blizzard just doesn't punish certain exploits for many years, people are going to learn they can skirt the rules. So it's the same thing with looting. Like, yeah, the right thing to do, you know, there's going to be enough people that don't do that, and then other people are like, well, shit, if other people are doing it, I'm going to do it. You replay that 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, and then you end up at a point where people will go as far as the, like, literal restrictions allow you to go. So it does kind of have to be policed on their side or fixed. And I was thinking about it when you guys first started talking about, I don't think you can, because, like, the Mistweaver staff thing, the Mistweaver Agi staff thing, like, that is something that someone could realistically do. I want to be this loot spec for this boss because I want things for this, like, that makes sense. But it just feels bad. Like, that
happened in my freaking friend raid today. So we were doing a friend raid Mythic. We killed the first boss, the tank trinket drops, and then the stupid Mistweaver Drogo in my raid set his loot spec to tank so that he can roll on the tank trinket that me and one other tank could have rolled on. And he won the trinket, of course.
Okay. That trinket isn't good for anybody, though, right? The Vexy
tank
trinket?
It's not, but, you know, like, so, if it was good, it would have sucked.
Yeah.
He was just rolling for item level.
Exactly. He's rolling for it for the same reason you are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it was good, you know, he would have took it anyways, and it would have sucked.
I don't know. I think that if you're in a raid that's called a friend raid and somebody's doing that, you gotta rename your raid.
Yeah, it's called quote unquote friend raid. Very friendly. By the way, the boosting topic. Look at this shit, man. I posted a screenshot in Discord. This shit was from a while back.
Oh, I saw this. I saw there was a spreadsheet of alleged booster or boosties.
Oh, let me look at the top of the goddamn
You're right
list
there, buddy. You're right there.
Call me boosted. That's crazy.
Wait, he's saying that you are the one receiving the boost?
Yeah.
Oh, you were the one
Hold on,
doing the
play.
boosting. You were a known booster, right?
No,
Like this...
no. This was just a bunch of friends playing, and then I had the lower score discrepancy, so I was flagged as the boosted.
Oh, they ran some kind of script. I see.
Yeah.
And then
So-
you basically were doing the Dratnos rat alt thing, except you wanted to actually play to Mythic Plus, so it looked like you just got boosted to a high score. That's so funny.
It's not even the Dratnos rat alt thing. That's a phenomenon that mostly happens in plus 10 keys. It's like, oh, I'm pushing for the season and I just don't have a high key yet, and then my first miss to the season is a 17, right? And like that looks awfully boost shaped if you're looking at it, but it's, you know, it's normal if you're actually really good and just haven't played in a while.
Yeah, and here's a list of the people who appeared the most on the list, and apparently I appeared 9 times as boosted. That's crazy.
Well, who are some of these other people? Are they known?
Presumably some of them are genuinely being boosted, yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
But yeah,
I just don't see that. I mean, I get it in Mythic Plus. Like Mythic Plus, I totally get. Like if you guys have ever grouped with someone that had a score and then you just saw some shit you could never unsee, and then you were like, how did they get into this thing? And then you start blaming boosting as like a potential thing. I think a lot of bottom rerollers don't actually get boosted as far as like what people generally mean with that term. They don't pay gold to get into these keys. It's just the reality is you'll just get accepted to keys because you're playing something that everyone wants. And then every now and then you will time keys. So just by sheer repetition, you are kind of getting boosted because you are bad, but like you will see people legitimately get the score they get, and that's why they're getting invited to those groups. Yeah, I don't know, man. I understand the Mythic Plus thing because these people actively harm you and they're actively taking spots. Like if you just missed the cutoff and you're having a real bad day, you might be, and you have some scripting knowledge, you might be like, I wonder who paid to take my spot. You know, just it makes sense.
Yeah, there's also a whole lot of negative connotation behind it because, you know, you've got these websites that are extremely TOS that involve boosting, and then you also have advertisers. They're extremely annoying. Like you'll have people randomly whisper you out of nowhere, just like saying like, "Oh, want to sell boost?" Yada yada yada. It's just like so.
Also,
It
Blizzard
you
is
say, Jones?
like they did the whole like crackdown on boosting communities, but like they very much still exist and are out there, and like you just don't get punished for boosting through them.
They left
but
a big loophole.
Yeah.
They basically, because we reached out to them and we do a bunch of boosts within our guild. We have someone in our guild who is hired to like be in charge of this. And we're like, well, what makes us any different than these other gold selling communities other than scale? Obviously, they're scaled like 10 million times higher. And they were like, well, it's like you're operating within a guild and we're okay with that. It's like, okay, so that was fine for us because we're like, we need to be doing this and we think what we're doing is legitimate, right? We're not selling it for money. We could not possibly risk that. We would just lose all of our jobs potentially and real money and stuff like that. So these like boosting orgs that do this are all doing it and making real money. That's why they wanted to remove them. But like, if you can operate under the guise of a guild, they'll just do that and then scale it as far as they can without getting in trouble. And as far as I know, that's what's happened. Like, I don't think any of them that have gotten removed were able to just like start it back up again. But it does seem like they've stopped policing it. Like, here's an example. If everyone remembers back in Legion, when we got banned, every other top guild got banned because everyone was selling hella runs for money. Like, your weekly clears were a few people were piloting someone's account. This was happening for years. Every guild you've heard the name of did this. And it was great, by the way, making insane money. And then we got into a lot of trouble for it. And then since then, we haven't done it. And more specifically, they banned people for technically account sharing because you were like playing these people's accounts. So they knew it was related to money. Okay, since then, I don't know anyone in a top guild that has been banned for account sharing. Maybe we haven't done it, but also who knows if we ever got banned for account sharing for any other reason than we were selling things for money. We probably could have been account sharing this whole time. There's been a long history of that in the race world first. And it's like, you basically could have been doing it, and it only matters if it's actually something they're trying to penalize at that time. So I feel like these gold boosting orgs, maybe Blizzard was paying attention to it and now they're not. So they feel like they can just get away with it because there's not like the police aren't out right now. They're asleep. for that specific topic. And that's I mean, that's a ticking time bomb, right? Like that can at any moment they can just decide to care about it and they'll get nuked. But yeah, I bet they are existing in big force and they're probably making a lot of money. Yeah.
Dude, meanwhile, in the Chinese servers, the boosting is extremely rampant. It is, dude. I gotta do that, like maybe.
Have you guys seen some of the?
I'm just giving a hypothetical. It'd be sick if I just played in Chinese servers and just made crazy amounts of money.
Dorki, you guys are probably like 2 of the maybe 100 people in the world who would lose money by doing that.
Okay, I mean, doesn't it make a ton of money?
No, dude, Dorki, I'll go with you. Big time streamer.
All right,
if we go to Chinese servers, I think we qualify for that Race World First bounty.
yeah.
That bounty's like $140,000.
That's a lot of money. That's great.
No, but also, like, actually, though, like on the Radar Out leaderboard, if you ever like look at these characters, there's like a non-only DK with like 673 item level or some shit. It is insane. Like these guys are so geared and they're just like blasting high keys all day. It's actually ridiculous.
Okay, so let me tell you a little fucking story about. So number one, Blizzard themselves, unless something really serious happens, does not police those servers at all. When we got banned, I was just referring to this. Like we got banned for selling runs for money back in Legion. The Chinese guilds were streaming their Race World First runs in Tomb of Sargeras, the tier after that happened, and we had a mage in our guild named Henry, who is Chinese, and he understood Mandarin and he could translate for us. And what was happening on one of these streams with thousands and thousands of viewers was they were asking chat if anyone could log on, or does anyone have a geared Ret Paladin? We need another Ret Paladin for this fight. And someone said yes, and this dude logged on to this dude's Ret Paladin on stream. They didn't hide fucking anything. They showed the, like, if you guys have ever piloted people's accounts before, you do a little trick with like their account name in the WTF folder, and like so all of your binds and stuff transfer. They did all of that main monitor in front of thousands of people and logged on this guy's account from chat and then killed Mythic Fallen Avatar. Like that is the level of what you can get away with in that region. It's completely it's the Wild West. It's completely unpoliced. So yeah, you are right. And I'm sure it's true in the Mythic Plus scene, but it is like it's complete madness. At least it used to be.
Have you guys seen the Warcraft logs, like screenshots where it's like one day, 8 Mythic end boss kills, each one with 20 different characters, but like the same
log?
Yeah, and it's all in the same log. And it's like...
Someone did this in EU a few years ago. Do you guys remember this? They got banned?
I don't remember.
Someone got banned. It was only as far away as like maybe 4 years ago at most. Some EU guild, Russian guild, boosted 8 of the top Hall of Fame guilds.
Oh, I remember that. I remember the Hall of Fame boost. Yeah,
that's what it was, and basically the same thing was figured out because it was all in one log, so you could see that it was all done by the same people, and it was also just super obvious anyway. Like these people had basically never pulled the boss, then instantly killed it. So yeah, it's a wild world out there, but you can't get away with that in NA and EU, unfortunately. But if you were in China, you'd be chilling. Not even making that up, you would. You'd be fine.
Yeah, we can make so much money right now. Not that we would, but we could.
You know what? When I'm saying this, it sounds made up, but it's true. And the reason why I feel bad about saying it is because, like, anytime someone brings up China servers, they always actually make something up. Like, have you guys ever heard that Chinese guilds have better loot because, like, when you used to have bonus rolls in this game, but because of Chinese gambling laws, bonus rolls couldn't fail. So you always got loot from it. That's completely made up, the fuck up. That was never true, but like people just say it, and then so me saying the boost, the like logging on stream sounds like I'm making it up, and I promise you I'm not making it up.
There's actually so much made up shit. I remember people said that about Outlaw Rogue 6 buff. You guys ever heard that? they say that like
gambling law.
No, unironically, I'm like dead ass. I've had a lot of chatters where are like, don't their Outlaw Rogues always roll 6 buff because of like some gambling laws? I'm not joking, by the way.
I know you're not joking.
There is a high, like, Outlaw and MM are 2 specs that they prefer compared to the Western regions as well. That's like always been true. No meme.
It's because of Chinese gambling laws.
Yeah, because of Chinese gambling laws, of course. They did recently do a big ban wave over there, though, but it is all done by like netties, not by Blizzard. So they banned almost 9,000 players who
Oh
boosted
yeah, this is based.
or who like cheated the title last season from
Yeah.
M Plus, which
So
is kind of crazy. They
I
gave
have
the
a
whole
question
list of the
about
players
that.
as well. Look at this.
Wait, they named
literally
their ass?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
named and
named all
shamed
the
them.
people. That
Wait,
are,
with
that are
title,
by this.
with title
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
So it looks like they banned or they
Oh no, the server name.
yeah, they put the server and then they did some anonymization with like they anonymized some of the middle of the names, it looks like.
That's still owned.
Why?
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, this is these are like all the follower mode, story mode, Winter Veil buffs, Lunar Festival buffs, all these different things. Mind control Legion mobs to apply their buffs to their team. Dream Surge buffs.
So I kind of doubt. There's two things about this. So I kind of doubt NetEase policed this because of how much they let go on normally. I bet Blizzard saw this and was like, "You guys need to do something about this." That's my.
But the thing is, they didn't do it on the West servers.
Yeah, like this is an area where I
cheated
think
their asses off here.
Oh wait.
I
So
don't think-
people
I
did
don't
this
think
in
people-
West servers too.
I don't think
Yeah,
anybody
yeah.
who did this in the West has gotten punished yet. So I think
Why
this is
not?
an area where
Exactly. Yeah.
maybe
That's
they're
ridiculous.
collecting the list.
Wait. Also,
Right
the
now.
other thing, we have banned 9,000 players who got this tempered hero. Is that the 0.01% title?
Yeah. So that's another topic.
Does
too,
that
that
mean
people
there's
are talking about
9
that. That is
million players that
insane.
are done a Mythic Plus key in China?
There are a lot of Chinese players.
So there are, but also there aren't that many in title range. So they banned more people than were in title range for this. So I think what happened is maybe they banned all these players and any of them who had the title they took the title from. That's one explanation for what could have happened here. Or maybe they took away title and then they looked at who was now going to be in the title range, and then a bunch of them exploited too, and they did that a couple of times until they had, a clean title range. I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, it's still
Yeah,
an
'cause that's a
insane
big
amount
number.
of players there.
That's a big number.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a big number. I mean, M Plus is a big thing.
I mean,
everywhere,
it's
but-
possible that like it just became so rampant over there that basically anyone who was doing dungeons was doing this.
That's
which
almost
is kind
the
of
problem as well.
crazy to think about.
That's what we talk about when as commenters mentioned in our video, we defended exploiting to our moral detriment.
Yes.
Was there is that element of like, if 1 week a couple people do it and don't get in trouble, and then the next week a couple more people do it and don't get in trouble, right? Like eventually that becomes everybody at the top of the leaderboard is exploiting because that's the incentive.
Yeah, I mean, but Blizzard. I mean, it's all. I mean, I would just put a lot of the emphasis on Blizzard having to deal with it. Like, here's an
Yeah.
example. Okay, never exploit. It's just wrong. It's morally wrong, and you can't do it. Okay, well, one that you can get away with is like the Cyrce's Signet thing. You can still. I did that yesterday on stream for my monk because I'm like, I could get like 30 eye levels for free on my ring without spending any crests. Like, why would I not do this? And that's kind of true. If they said like they're not gonna do anything for it, it's just like some. But then you just add in the world of there are some exploits you can do and some exploits you don't, and that's why people do them. If it was you couldn't do any of them ever, you just wouldn't do any of them ever because you would know there's a punishment. But yeah, big can of worms, which we've talked about multiple times.
Okay, I have a mini question. Speaking of Cyrce Circlet, you guys happy with how powerful that thing is still in this season? I don't know about you guys. Like pretty much all of my guys still have that on.
I don't
Yeah.
feel like it's actually that powerful.
Yeah, so I looked at the top 10 characters by item level, and 5 of them still had it on. The other 5 are wearing. Usually, it's a Jaster Diamond and a good stat ring.
Yeah, I'm reading that most people, once they get like full mythic upgraded rings, it's slightly better. And I'm trying to compare it to like the Onyx Amulet from Dragonflight, and that was so powerful that I believe healers wouldn't have taken it off until this expansion had it not been
Yep.
nerfed.
Yeah.
And it was just Ultra Bis basically for a lot of classes. I don't know how many classes where Cyrce's Circlet is best in slot with perfect gear in this season. Are you guys aware of any? I'm sure there must be.
I think there's a few, but for most, it's like this does get replaced once you have 2 good, mythic rings.
Then
Yeah,
I
most of
feel
the
like
classes
it's.
I play replace.
I feel like it's fine.
Yeah,
I think
I feel like they slightly overshot on it, but I agree it's not as bad as what Amulet would have been if they hadn't nerfed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
to be fair,
initial
you don't have to
thoughts.
grind it.
I mean, honestly, I feel like with how hard jewelry it can be to get, I think it might have been like a nice mental boost to a lot of people early in the season, knowing they didn't have to like actually get that second ring for Mythic Plus. Maybe I'm just
Sure.
kind of throwing something out there.
I feel that way for sure.
Yeah, I kind of wish you did replace it with a hero track ring, which like you usually don't do. Oh, there are some classes that do, but it's usually like only if you get a Turbo Bis 2 ring setup that you would replace it before myth track. It depends. I don't know. Maybe it's also, I think, a bit better for tanks than it is for DPS. So my experience might be colored by that.
Yo, I need to ask you guys something.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about that new Archon add-on? The
great one.
Shit.
Yeah, so this puts people's parses on nameplates on tooltip. Yeah.
So my take was, I don't think it even really matters. I know everyone's been like up in flames about this, saying how it's gonna be the worst shit ever and yada yada yada. But I feel like it's not that much different from having the Raider IO add-on. Plus, like I don't think there are really many people who will even use this. People are like way more boogeymanning this than what it will actually do.
Yeah, I to me, all of the so you're right. So something that a lot of people aren't aware of is that in higher level keys or like invites to maybe like a mythic pug, someone is likely to look up your logs anyway. This if it's publicly available, because you don't want you want to like you value your time, you don't want to wipe, and you can get a slightly better idea of their skill level with some parses rather than just their IO score, or just how far progressed they are in the raid, which you would see on the Raider IO add-on. But I don't think 99% of the public outcry against this add-on, I think, is coming from people that did not know that process already existed or even really did high-level content to where it would be relevant. It's more just, one of the anxieties people have about WoW, which I think is totally valid, by the way, is like a lot of people want to just play the game and have fun, and they don't want people like putting their performance under a microscope. And this add-on and like the picture specifically that went with it with the tooltip is just the antithesis of what people want. They hate that, and they don't want that in their game. And I think a lot of people who maybe even don't play the game were like, dude, this is part of why I quit, because like this parse culture shit, it went mainstream, went gaming mainstream on Twitter and shit. So like, I think it was that. So I think the fact that most people, your response and other people's response was, that play the game were like, this is kind of just like convenient because people were looking up this information anyway, and it's actually quite helpful for those situations. But I think most of the people who were against it were, either didn't know that but don't really care, but they're just like, this is what I fucking hate, and I'm gonna let you know that I just fucking hate this. And there was an opportunity for them to do that, and I think their opinion's pretty credible too.
Yeah, no, I think it's completely valid. Like it is something to be potentially worried about, but it's just like I don't think it'll be as real as they might think. It's kind of like the whole people who leave dungeons, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure there are people who leave dungeons, but I don't think it's like that common of an occurrence.
I'll make a bit of the counter argument to this that I think there are definitely a lot of people who had the reaction that you guys are describing. I do think it's true though that if you think that it's kind of a bad thing, making it more convenient is going to make it more doable for more people, right? If you think about, if I had to go and find somebody's private logs, right? Like that's a step that I'm only going to get their login or whatever and look at their private logs if they're trying to join my guild, right? Like that's a huge amount of work. That's a lot. I'm not going to do that. Now looking up somebody's public facing page, tabbing out, popping open the browser, it's kind of annoying, but I'll do it if I'm running a mythic pug maybe. If I'm doing like a heroic pug, I don't know, man. Like I got 30 applicants. I'm really going to bother like looking at people's logs? Nah. But if I can mouse over everybody and be like, ooh, there's an orange person, grab them, right? Like that is very much something that is now easier to do. And so more people might do it. And so then maybe now more people are going to play like absolute idiots to try and get higher parses in their heroic runs, right? If you ask somebody like, hey, can you go run this bomb into the container on Gallywix?
No.
There's going to be like, no, man, if I do that, I'm never going to get invited to anything ever again, right? Like,
which is bad, which would be terrible if that was the case, yeah.
So I think that I think it's not unfounded. Like you can see the pathway by which this add-on coming out leads to the quality of the game getting worse I think especially like the heroic pugging range is where this might have some pretty contagious effects.
And I think that level and below is probably where 100% of the outcry came from.
Yeah, because I agree, like mythic pugs, if you're doing a mythic pug and you're not looking at logs, actually I often don't look at logs for first two mythic pugs because I just pick, and I'm usually only pugging one or two slots anyway, so I just feel like, yep, welcome. Let's see how this person does. It's fine, doesn't matter, right? But if it did matter, I would. And I agree that this just makes it more convenient in those cases, and that's just nice. Yeah, I can see it's definitely one of those things where like the ickiness feeling is a lot of the problem. And like you said, Max, like there are people who just want to play, who just want to game and not feel like if they don't research beforehand and like lock the fuck in for their heroic run, they're gonna like grief their character for like, you know, you can grief your progression in some games, but it's weird in an MMO to like grief your progression because you've got some bad logs associated with your character now.
Yeah, I just feel like the Pandora box has already been opened. I mean, like, I've always been against parse culture, right? Like, I hate the idea of logs and parsing and just like having details that shows everyone's damage, but it's already done, right? Like, the damage is already done.
Yeah.
And this is like how the game is. Like, we just have to accept that that's going to be how it is. Like, if Blizzard was to make a stance initially, like way back, that they were not going to allow any of this shit at all, then I would have been fully for it. But I feel like it's already out there, so it's kind of like, it's just another one of those add-ons. It didn't seem like a big deal to me.
It's probably like in MMOs forever. Like I think WoW is just such an impactful game, and this happened to WoW over a long period of time. Like basically, any new MMO will probably always end up being that way as well. Like even if games try to intentionally hide it, players just
Final Fantasy does that, right?
It does and it doesn't, you know.
It
like
it
does, and then people are willing to literally break the TOS to see it, and a lot of them do. So like that just shows you, if anything, right? Dude, this is a great topic. I feel like everyone had very different and reasonable points from their POV. It's just great podcasting right there. Just everybody here.
Podcast.
There's other WoW podcasts that could not come anywhere close to what just happened.
Amen. And you know what? The commenters also, let us know in the comments your opinions on this and all other takes this episode. Because the PoddyC commenters are also just the goats as well.
You know, what the Sigma? Yeah, so Max, you started Rizzy Glizzy, right? I saw you started. So you're playing the game for the first time in a few years. How has it been?
That's not true. But
nope. Okay, yep.
What do you mean that's just simply not true? Well, actually, wait. When was the last time I played?
You played Havoc and Amir still, right?
Yeah, the last time I like played the game, like I was super into it, was Havoc and Amir still, like logging on it every day, slamming dungeons. God, that was so fun. I played a little bit of Frosty K last season, but I was kind of a little out of it. Yeah, I don't know. With this season, yeah, I'm having a blast. I've only done one Mythic Plus dungeon, but it was the brand new one, the like Floodgate one, and that dungeon was sick. It was super fun.
Yep.
Yeah, Dorki, I was watching you do that dungeon today, and you described it as a W dungeon.
W dungeon, yeah.
Yeah. Funny, because it seemed like from PTR testing, a lot of people were worried that it just like had that kind of mechanic vomit feel to it with like so much going on. But I think from our perspective, like it's just such a beautiful, wide open dungeon. It's so fun to go in there and you can just do anything you want. There's so much creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I've been so into WoW recently. I'm having a great time this season.
I'm hearing that from a lot of people. I specifically Mythic Plusers, this seems like it's hard to tell when you're in the moment because there's always so much negativity in general. But it seems like we're in one of the better Mythic Plus seasons that the game has had, I think.
Dude, even the raid. So we're now on Gallywix. I'm playing a Boomkin and Gallywix. Probably be the first Boomkin to clear it. And
hell yeah.
Yeah, so we've gone like pretty far into the fight. And my entire guild, like they've been like, typing in chat, like, because we have like our little in-party discussion while like the raid leaders like talking about shit or looking stuff up, right? And like people are actually saying how they've been having such a good time with this raid and saying how like a lot of the fights are just like super fun. And I've never really seen this before from my guild, and I feel exactly the same. Like this raid actually fucking owns. I know a lot of people like don't feel that strongly about a lot of these fights, especially Gallywix, but I fucking love Gallywix. I think it's an amazing fight. So,
dude,
like,
people
so far,
got so
like,
mad at me.
Great.
Recently, and I because of one comment I made, which I said there are some Mythic Raiders out there that this is in reaction to like saying that Gallywix and this raid are an abomination. And I said, there are some Mythic Raiders that would rather them be closer to Gallywix and this raid's difficulty than Ansarek and Erebar Palace. And then a lot of commenters of this podcast, maybe it was on this podcast or someone else, they were like, Mythic Raiders do not want this. Like Mythic Raiders want like a super, super hard raid. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like
they're not even at Gallywix yet. There's no shot.
I mean, there's like, a lot of room between Gallywix and Ansarek for a boss to land in difficulty, right?
Yeah, correct. But I'm not even speaking about Gallywix specifically either. I think this raid in general is if you were to compare this raid's difficulty to Nerbar Palace's difficulty, not even for World First, for the Cutting Edge Guild is significantly less, right?
And I think that's good. I think they landed a much better difficulty curve as well, right? Like, obviously it was a little scuffed week 1, but that doesn't matter because the guilds aren't there. Only a couple of guilds in the world are fighting those things week 1, right? And then they landed some big nerfs on Styx and Sprocket, and I think we've now got a nice, like, 2 pretty puggable bosses, and then Rick's a step up, Styx is a step up, Sprocket's a step up. Like, it's all pretty good.
They nerfed bosses really early, and then the last 2 bosses, which are usually the ones that don't get nerfed fast enough. The last boss is in no need of nerfs ever, to a fault, and Muggsy is very nerfed by gear, and the previous boss, One Armed Bandit, is the one where it's kind of like maybe there's a little. It's just kind of crazy hard. It's a crazy.
Did you guys see the leak of One Armed Bandit nerfs coming next week?
Oh yeah, that's funny as hell.
There's so you know Zorthus, the tomato VTuber streamer who's like the GM of Honestly or something, the OCE guild.
Nope.
He's a tomato VTuber streamer that is the GM of Honestly.
I'm caught up.
Yep. And he like brought a camera in and was streaming a WoW 30th anniversary event and there was like Morgan Day there signing stuff, and he was like talking to him about it, and Morgan Day said something about how they were nerfing it next week. So
yeah, we were just having it was funny because like they're just like in the middle of a party and we're just kind of like shooting the shit, just like chatting. And we were just like casually talking about One Armed Bandit being pretty difficult of a boss, and Morgan Day just casually goes like, "Oh yeah, that boss is probably getting nerfed next week."
Here, we can watch the clip together because it's this thing is so funny.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you.
My guild wiped all night on One Armed Bandit last night. That boss needs a nerf, okay? We're also the rank 1 Oceanic guild, and we wiped all night on One Armed Bandit. That boss needs a nerf, okay?
Is it on Mythic?
On Mythic, yeah.
No, I think next week it's getting nerfs. Or next reset it's getting nerfs.
Right. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing you'd hear at a WoW party with developers at it, where they'll speak more freely. But also, I feel like if someone were to just make up One Armed Bandit is getting nerfed next week, it'd be like, yep, that checks out. Like it's not that's not surprising, you know. So
yeah.
So I will comment on Gallywix. I don't think it's as easy as people make it out to be. Like what Preach said, it's easier than Richard Reverb. That is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
I will say like after doing this fight, like so we're pretty deep into the fight, right? Like we're like 90 pulls or something into it. We're not as great as like Pop Tart Corn Dog or Liquid.
I was gonna say I didn't know that boss had 90 pulls in it.
You could be as good as Liquid. We took 100 on that boss. You could kill it faster than us.
It's a pretty hard boss. Yeah, I mean, like so the healing check is actually pretty big on that fight. I feel like I am in constant verge of death. So like, and it's super action packed. Like there's just shit happening the entire fight. The thing that makes it easy is there's not a lot of steps to learn, because like once you figure out the first mechanic, you kind of understand the entire P1, and once you figure out the first mechanic of P2, then you kind of understand how P2 works. So it just feels like the fight doesn't go on for very long, but like it is pretty challenging.
How low have you gotten?
To like 20% around there.
Okay, so you've gotten in the last phase.
Yeah, we've gotten to like 8 minutes into the fight.
I think that you got most of the way there for what was wrong with the fight. Everything you said was right. It's just that you said you learned P2 and then it's just all the same. Well, when you learn P2, you also learn P3. I think that's the single biggest thing, is that when you get to P3, none of the mechanics are amplified or bigger or harder than they were. It's just like, oh, you have less space now, but you have more than enough space to deal with anything, and there's like 10 seconds in between every mechanic, you know?
But it's a fun fight the entire way through, and it's just like there's action happening the entire time. So I don't find that to be a problem. It's just you're not having to spend another 50 to 100 pull learning another section of the fight. That's kind of how I see it.
I think P1 is fine, but I do think P2 is like you can watch some ranged POVs of P2 where they literally stand in the same location for like 2 minutes with their camera aimed at the floor and just doing their rotation.
True. I mean, I'm playing range right now, and there's a bit of a dance going on.
He's specifically referring to fire mages who have the bomb and don't have the you
don't soak. Yeah,
you don't have the ability to soak, so you do actually stand in the middle, and unless suppression fire spawns on you, you literally never move for any reason. That is true, but also that is a strat based decision, right? like you could have that not be the case. Everyone's using our strat, I'm pretty sure, and the reason that is why would you have the people who can wipe you if they die do anything? And the answer is you probably wouldn't if you could, right?
Yeah, I mean, either way, I think once more people see this fight, I have a feeling this will be a pretty well received fight.
Yeah,
It's definitely
I don't
gonna
know.
be more challenging
I feel like
than I think it'll be for a lot of players.
I feel like right now, if you can get past pre-nerf Muggsy, pre-nerf Armed Bandit, like you are going to find Gallywix to be an easier encounter to progress than either of those, and that's the kind of thing where, like, depending on your motivations for raiding, that can be either a positive or a negative, right? Like,
Bro, I don't know about easier for one armed bandit. Maybe our guild just sucks,
Okay.
but I swear it's harder than one armed bandit. Well, I guess you guys got shit on to be
Okay,
fair.
I don't know, maybe we just sucked on Armed Bandit, but like for me,
Yeah.
it's way harder than.
Okay,
or
I
way
have a
easier than
question
Armed
for you
Bandit.
two. What if you guys had to guess what guild rank does it stop where you want the last boss to blow your brains out in difficulty?
What do you mean?
Like, I think you're so like the whole conversation of like you know, if you were to make the argument of like people would want a boss to be easier than Ansarek, maybe closer to Gallywix than Ansarek. The people who are saying no, that's not true. I want an extremely fucking hard. I'm saying like what guild rank wants to wipe on the last boss 300 times? Like when does it stop? Like I can
don't
tell
think it
you
has to do with guild rank, personally.
I think it does, right? Because like you would assume the guilds that are at the higher guild rank are the guilds who raid more, care more about raiding, and usually are better at it. So you want a harder challenge to, you know, entertain yourselves. You're doing this for a reason, you're doing it for fun, right? So like I can tell you for us, like I think a perfectly tuned end boss is like it's not bugged or needing to be nerfed, and it's somewhere around like 200 to maybe 350 of like, just depends on how difficult the boss is, but if it's like consistent progression, that feeling at the end of that is something you can't get from another game. Where like when a boss is 100, that's not true. So what I'm saying is that what guild rank like is maybe Pop Tart Corn Dog, maybe it's World 5th, maybe like what rank guild, how many people are you serving by making a boss that requires 400 pulls?
Yeah, it's
It's
got to be
just so
vanishingly
hard.
small.
It's just so
Yeah.
hard to compare because I feel like it's not about the poll count number. I think it's more about just. Yeah, I don't know. It's just.
I think the pull count matters. You know, like let's just say Gallywix is the exact same boss. I think when actually, you know, I will say I noticed this about you. Most bosses you like or dislike over the past few years of talking to you about rating is pretty much anytime a boss gets past, like it's like, is it 150 or maybe if it's 100, you start going from like this boss is pretty fun to like I fucking hate this. Like I don't. Growl's the same way too, because he's like very vocal about it. That's why I remember both of you.
Well, so for me, it's a little bit different. Like me personally, the way I see it is, if I'm just repeating the same shit, then I'm just bored and I just want to get out of here. Because like you know, like I feel like I've already usually around like 90 pulls in, I feel like there's no boss fight where I don't feel like I've already learned the entire fight. Like even like Ansarek, right? Like once I get to 90 pulls, I'm like, all right, well, I'm like, at this point we should just kill the boss, right? Because like, what else is there to see? I don't want to see the same shit over.
You want to
and over
learn the
for another
boss,
100
you just
pulls.
don't want to optimize.
Yeah, like
Actually,
if
at your
there's like a
level,
boss.
it's not optimizing.
Well, no,
It's
I mean
waiting
I'm
for the
already
person to stop
optimized.
messing up.
Yeah, because
right?
like I've already gotten to that point where I'm hitting the same globals for
Right.
100 pulls straight. I don't want to just do another 100 pulls of doing the exact same shit. Like let's just get it over with.
Yeah, also you like optimizing because like you wouldn't do the TGP otherwise, right? Because that's like literally what the TGP is. Like,
But you don't raid in a guild that does that, right? Like you're missing out on that part of it.
Well, who actually
Well, it
gets to
depends
do
on what you
that?
mean by that.
What
Yeah.
guild truly gets to like get to a boss fully figured out and then be like, hey, we have to generate 10% of the boss's HP? There's like probably one or two, right? It's that's not something a lot of people actually have to deal with because most people get to a fight with like, oh, this is exactly what you have to do to kill it, or even less, depending on how much gear you have. But like I think in Dorki's situation is when you're not at that level of guild, you're not doing the race world first, you're not, you know, doing this is your main thing in your life that you're doing outside of work maybe. When you're pulling a boss for 200 times, if you're one of the better players, you're not actually like feeling like you're getting better every pull. It feels like you've capped out on getting better and you're waiting for people to catch up. And that feeling is terrible. Is that correct or somewhere?
Yeah. Like right now on what you call it, Gallywix. Like I've already figured out all my timings. Like I already know the positioning, the dance, and everything. So it's like we're just waiting for the boss to die at this point, right? Because like you know I'm playing Moonkin too, so it's like I had to figure all that stuff out myself. I'm not just like blindly opening up some Boomkin VOD and just looking at the very exact positioning and CD timings and all that. Like I kind of just like did all that off stream and
That must have
out
been fun though.
exactly what to
That's
do.
probably part of the reason
Yeah,
why
yeah.
Galley's been pretty fun for you. Is like you're
That's
figuring out how to do
definitely
Moonkin on a
true,
fight that
too.
people don't do Moonkin on.
Yeah, like there's definitely a lot of blind progression for me on that fight, and it was a lot of
Yeah.
fun for sure. But I'm at that point now where it's like, all right, we've seen the whole fight, and I've gotten to the point where I'm ready to kill it. So I think that's just the point where it stops being fun. And
Yeah.
it doesn't help if it's a 10 pull boss too, because like if I'm doing a boss for like 10, 20 pulls and there's nothing to really figure out or optimize, then that's also extremely boring.
Yeah, it's the importance of raiding with a guild with good skill parity. Because if you are way better than the average of your guild, you will always feel like long bosses are dreadful. And if you are on the lower end of that, obviously you feel bad that you're holding other people back. Like, for example, if you could do any hard boss, then technically, from what you're saying, Dorki, you could do a boss that takes your guild 300 pulls. But if everyone there is the exact same skill level, you should enjoy all 300 of those pulls, because all of those pulls are you learning and getting better. You're not waiting for someone else to do it, I guess. Even though 300 is still a long time.
Yeah, the way I also see it is like if you're not a Race the World First guild, you can kind of just like pull up a VOD and just copy everything, and like the homework is already done for you, right? Like that's why I feel like 300 plus pulls doesn't really make sense. Like maybe it's just a me thing, but can't you literally just like watch a VOD and just like see how it works, and by the time you get to 100 pulls, you can pretty much just do what the VOD does, except you're like way more geared and all that.
So why didn't you do that on Instarac?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, like we shouldn't require that many polls, but it's just
Right, but like
I don't know.
where are those polls coming from if that process provably doesn't work, right? Like, or it's not that simple.
Well, I mean, I figured it's just because like people don't really bother watching what they should do. I don't know, because like when I got to the point where we were like P3, is like people are completely clueless on like what they're supposed to be doing, but
in Galley,
I feel like
pre-nerf web blades were just insanely hard. I mean, that was
like
actually most guilds like 150 plus pulls just to like not die to that consistently.
Well, so that's the difference. Yeah, I'm not saying like if I think I said this last podcast, but like if people just die to mistakes, then it's not a big deal. But like if people literally have no idea what they're doing, then that really sucks. It's like okay, we get to a certain part of the fight and people still don't understand that, like, oh, you're not supposed to be like standing here, or you're supposed to be like doing this. Even though like we already went over it in the VOD.
Dude, I'm having such a revelation right now, and I might be like totally missing it here, so I might need some help from you to figure this out. But my biggest, sorry, you might hear some dog squeaking in the background. Ella, come here, girl. Come here. Sorry, that's just gonna really bother me. I'll give it right back to her after this. But I'm having a fucking Jimmy Neutron brain blast right now. Okay, so do you guys? Okay, in the race, the thing that makes me really upset is usually, okay, so anytime we're doing a boss, we're figuring the boss out and the execution requirement of the boss line up, everyone's happy. Vibes are awesome. I'm feeling great. Ready to kill the boss now, guys. Fully figured out. Cool. And then we kill it. The bosses that drive me crazy are when I trick myself into thinking that we have it fully figured out, or for whatever reason, the strategy requirement of the boss is much easier than the execution. And I'm sitting here just waiting for them to fucking kill it. And that is dreadful. And I get super ornery and pissy. And I'm just like, why are we fucking doing this? I'm literally bored. I'm like, my brain requires stimulation and I'm actually bored and I want to move on to the next thing. And I wonder, you mentioning this thing about the video, I wonder how much of this is true with video guilds, which is every other guild in the world, right? How that can be frustrating because technically you have like the thing in front of you. Like, this is how you do it. It is solved. The only thing that is there is execution. And for some people thinking, like, basically you start progression with the feeling that I end progression with sometimes in some fights. And maybe that's why raid can feel so frustrating, is because like when you're not actually figuring it out as a group, it is purely just down to execution. You're kind of just waiting for it to happen. And that's kind of not as fun nearly as any kind of thing with figuring it out. And maybe that's where that frustration comes from.
Yeah, it's kind of like, like for example, it's like, how do people just not know where to go with the blaze lines by pull 100, right? Like, it should just be known that, like, oh, here are the rules. You're supposed to do this, this, and that, or like what your soak spots are, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I see it.
And you should the expectation is you go in knowing all that stuff. I think some guilds do that, right? Aren't some guilds like, hey, everybody, before showing up to raid, watch this video and like know exactly what you need to do. But that just means so many different things to so many different people. Some of them are relying on like some reminder call outs and some add-on packages to do it, a lot of that legwork for them. They're wanting good raid leading to do that for them. Like, honestly, good raid leading at a lower guild level where you're not like doing like literally figuring out the fights on Race World first. Why good raid leading might matter is because there is not a consistent standard for showing up to raid prepared, and that can just fill in a lot of those gaps.
Yeah. I mean, good raid, like good. We had on Mugsy, we only played one Dev Evoker, and our second Dev Evoker did like 21sting on Mugsy, and it was so good. It was like, okay, here comes a frontal, this one goes to purple. Okay, here comes a tank line, this one goes down the middle, right? And like you hear that, and then you just never wiped like. Somebody gets a mechanic and panics and doesn't know where to go, right? And it's definitely something where it's like, but not a lot of guilds have access to that, or like, you can't make 20 people watch a video and like know exactly what they're supposed to do, right? You have to just pull the boss some amount of times before that happens. So
yeah, I mean,
it's definitely one of the things where like, yeah, it depends on your guild, right? And I think that with all things, the biggest thing is just it feels bad when everybody's not on the same page, right? Like if you have some fast learners, some slow learners, if you have some video watchers and write out an extensive reminder for yourself, and some people that are just like, yeah, let's pull the boss and see what it does, right? Like that is going to cause tension. And a fight like Gallywix will inherently cause less tension between those different groups because there's not a huge difference, right? If you just tell somebody like, yeah, you're soaking the left cones, that's all the information they need for Gallywix P2, right? And P3. It's like, I'm soaking the left cones. Okay, poggers, right? Like that's what I do. And then the rest of it are just mechanics that you game out, right? And you compare that to Answerek, and it's like, okay, you need to pick up this essence from this location at this specific time, and then go through this gateway and move to this specific location to drop your essence, right? While dodging web blades before and after and during, right? Like that is a apocalypse level difficulty thing that Gallywix just does not have, and so it's kind of a great equalizer among guilds with different levels of preparation and stuff.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm also not saying like, every guild is expected to do this. I'm just saying like in my circumstances, this is how our guild runs. We literally have our raid time spent on watching for Race the World First VODs, or just like sometimes like Dratnos VODs too, just like to see how like other guilds are doing it.
Yeah, we do PC theater before every boss, right? We'll watch the VOD, talk about it, and then we'll do like phase by phase as we're reaching a new phase. We'll be like, okay, we're about to reach P2. Let's watch P2 again.
Right, yeah. So in our guild we have that expectation. Like obviously there are probably a lot of guilds out there that don't do this at all, and they kind of just go in blind, or like maybe they like will say like, oh, you guys should probably look up stuff. So that's a complete difference.
Yeah, you got a lot of the raid leaders kind of shaming everybody for making a mistake and being like, you guys should have looked this up, right? But like it's like an inhuman expectation that they're placing on people.
Yeah, most people just need to do the fight and mess it up to learn it.
Yeah, so on the M+ side of things, I don't know if you guys have saw, but apparently this season so far has the highest retention we've seen since Shadowlands or some shit. There was like some post I saw about it. Yeah, I mean, this season absolutely owns.
There is a confounding factor here, which is the like week 4 is the best week 4 ever, but it was also Mythic Dungeon week, where if you do 4 keys, you get a hero track
the same
item
for every season. I thought it was just like
no, that it lands on different
point.
weeks from season to season.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So but I think the trend would hold true regardless. Like I think this season, to me, the biggest thing this season is there are just good rewards along every step of the way for M+. I think the really cool thing is there's a reward for getting like 3K score, which is a higher step than there's ever been before, and that means that there's something to do past getting Keystone Master, right, which is fairly low, right? There's a 2K reward, a 2.5K reward, a 3K reward, and so people are just like, you have incentive to push all the way up to 13s for an achievement before then that long chasm before title. And I think that's led to a lot of people kind of being like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go for this, right? And
that was kind of a suggestion in the past, right? We felt there wasn't a bridge. There wasn't a bridge to getting to that higher level, and they've just added more little breadcrumbs of for you to do, and people are actually doing it. And one thing before the tiers, you guys said that I think Dorki said on the PTR, it just seemed like they wanted these dungeons to be way easier. The requirement. We talked about this very briefly in the podcast, the tier list podcast, but like the civilian dude talked to my backyard, which by the way, ton of comments on the last video that did not listen to our literal description of civilian at all before commenting about what they were like. Dude, he doesn't understand civilians are not 3KIO, and we literally described exactly why they are and never mind. Okay, but
Civilians are not casuals.
yeah, exactly.
And some are low
They
IO
can
and some
be.
are high IO,
Yeah.
right? You can, the IO is not.
Yeah, and also we're all making it up, right?
Exactly.
So we're literally telling you what we mean by that, but it's just like civilian and casual. I think civilian. Some people hear the word civilian and just instantly get defensive and mad too. And I think that's part of it. Like I think somebody just heard that and then just went right to the comment section, which I gotta respect that, just being mad all the time. But yeah. So one thing he mentioned was like, yeah, last season I was doing it, but man, I just couldn't, like the amount of stuff. And I could tell this was not like his brain being warped by just constant the narrative online and in comment sections and on Twitter about like how dungeons are too hard. He's just like a full natty fucking gamer. He doesn't listen to any of this stuff, which if you listen to our description of civilian is literally the description of that. And he was just saying like, dude, there's just so much going on. Like, I just feel like they're losing me with Mythic Plus now because it's just like you're losing kind of what makes it really fun and repeatable, and they're trying to make it crazy hard. And I'm 100% positive that came from no one else. He's not repeating his favorite streamer's thoughts. That's pure natty, right?
And that's just his feelings.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like they have addressed that?
I mean, it definitely feels like Blizzard has moved in the right direction. Like, let's take a list of what they've done. So they made 10s easier to do, which is like, the cap reward. So a lot of people have been super happy about that. They reduced the amount of tank busters. That's a huge W. They reduced the amount of group damage. It's actually insane. It's like night and day. Sometimes I'd be doing these bosses. Like, say I'm doing the last boss workshop, right? Like the King Mechagon that just does his suck. And I remember back in BFA or Shadowlands Season 4, where it would just like obliterate your team, but like now it's just kind of doing no damage. And it feels wrong in one way because it's like I'm so conditioned to every single mechanic just like completely shitting on your team. But there's none of that. There's like way less one shots. We don't even have to pull up the calculator. The website notevenclose.com or whatever. It's like a website that was made back in Dragonflight because people would need to calculate what exactly they needed to live each and every mechanic. And we're out here doing 17s, 18s, and not requiring the one-shot calculator yet, which
that's crazy.
Fucking owns.
That's such a difference, by the way. That's insane.
Yeah, and then we've been preaching that forever now, too. They reduced the amount of, like, mandatory kicks required, too. Like, there's just so much less spam casters. Class variety feels really good right now. You can play so many different specs and still be able to perform well instead of just being stuck to the meta comp.
Part of that is the defensive thing for sure, too. Like I remember looking at like some of the meta for previous seasons, and it was basically who can reliably live a cast that's doing 100% of your HP every 30 seconds. And literally the list of classes is like less than 10 or specs out of 40, almost.
Yeah,
40.
and also you needed to fit in Mark of the Wild and Fort and stuff so that you wouldn't fucking die.
So it's so like your comp was just laid the fuck out. But if you're not actually dying to every mechanic, I know you're in the middle of a rant. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that that alone has made the meta more diverse.
Yeah, they've just like done so much in the right direction for M+, and I'm just like so happy to see. Also, like the plus 12 jump too. Last season that was such a problem, and now people are able to just enter high keys comfortably. And I feel like there's so many people doing high keys this season. It's actually ridiculous. I've been hugging keys, and there are just like so many people who are pugging like 15s and 16s, which would have been unheard of in the past.
Yeah, I see you doing those level keys with your main team as well. It's nice. It's nice.
yeah.
Of the...
It's relatable.
Exactly.
No, but like actually, because like you can actually pug these higher keys because the coordination requirement is nowhere near as insane. Also, there was like an interesting post I saw this morning on our trusty competitive WoW Reddit. I mean, just the title alone. This is completely breaking M+ defensive balance, and it's so much fun to play. Bro, I've been saying this about healers forever now. Like, I swear to God, if you just make healing fun, it's fun for everyone, right? Like, so I don't know if you guys have kept up with Oracle Dispriest, but that's kind of the new wave.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because Rivens has been playing this build, and he's been preaching it forever, and everyone else was playing Void Weaver. We all called him a fucking idiot for it because it does no damage, and everyone else is playing Void Weaver. But it turns out that like it's actually OP, and everyone started playing it.
Power Shield's literally bigger than Life Cocoon on this build.
You literally just give people an entire HP bar of Absorb Shield. And it's so sick to have. Everyone's having fun, right? Like the DPS is having fun because they're not worried about dying every second.
Yeah.
The healer feels like they have a ton of agency. It just feels great, but
There's some people who are not having fun, and that is
Yeah, of course, the non-Oracle disc
people who
priest.
main other healers in the group finder not getting invited.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
always the issue. Is something that's super OP in one role.
But I've always
like,
said
feeling
that,
like your guy is OP is a great thing that WoW has been missing for. Like Dragonflight, I think really didn't feature
exactly.
That's what BFA
Yeah.
Season 4 did. It made everyone feel OP.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just good
Oh,
to
yeah?
see that there's like some really positive receptions to this season.
Well, we're
It's
getting
the
that
most like
soon, right?
Legion M plus that we've had since Legion, right? Like, I don't know. It reminds me of that.
Yeah.
We're getting BFA Season 4 Corruption Powers soon, right? Has anyone tested that?
It's on, so it's on PTR now. It's like you can enchant your helmet with and it goes away at the end of the season. So it'll be just for the season on the patch. And there's just like a few of the corruptions, but it's not the same as corruption, but there's like Echoing Void, Twilight Dev, Void Ritual. I don't think there's the stat corruptions, and it's only one slot. So
Okay.
Yeah,
it's,
it feels
it's
like
not going to be the
Corruption
same as
light.
corruption.
That I like the cook because we've been saying we wanted like a little borrowed power that's like not defining the patch. It's not defining the expansion. But I wonder if we'll ever see the flip side of that, where maybe this stuff is fucking awesome, and we're like, man, how come for only like 20 or 30 or 40% of this patch do we have the really, really awesome stuff instead of just all the time? And then it's like the going full circle thing where it's like, wait, do we want borrowed power expansions again? You know?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this whole corruption thing turns out. I feel like it'll be kind of a nothing burger, and it'll just be like maybe it'll be cool and fun.
I think it'll be pretty closer to nothing than to BFA corruptions for sure. In my opinion. Okay. Speaking of M plus again as well, I know that this causes people to immediately close the video. So that's why we're putting it at the end here. But there is some brief MDI discussion that we should do.
Okay.
Minus all viewers.
Yeah, goodbye, viewer. We'll see you next week. But okay, so there's a class stacking or not stacking rule. There's been a class stacking rule in MDI for ages, but this time around MDI, which is like it's all going to be TGP style, but called MDI. So basically, this season around TGP, there's a new rule where they're doing it like last season, where you do like there's 2 day ones and then a day 2 with the good teams from those day ones. But in that day 2, the 3 specs that were played the most by each team in their day 1 can't be used for that team in the day 2. So like if we play the meta comp for all of day 1, we can't use 3 of those specs, which it would be the tank and the healer, and then a DPS the team's pick is the tiebreaker for if you have the same number of uses, I guess. But what do you guys think about this? This seems like such an interesting, kind of weird way to do class restrictions in MDI.
So apparently it's based off of the League of Legends, what's it called, like Fearless Draft or something?
It reminds me a bit of Fearless Draft, yeah, which League has been doing. I don't know if you guys watch League. I watch a little bit of League.
I haven't been watching in a long time.
I like watching, like from time to time I'll tune in for, and they have a system right now where like in all the BO3s and BO5s, I think worldwide for all their esports this year, if you use a champion, you can't use it for the rest of that BO3 or BO5. So yeah, it's sort of, it seems definitely similar to that.
Except just like 150 champions,
right?
But okay, okay. So like the clear things are like, okay, on day 1, do you run the meta comp so you qualify for the last day, and then you're in a worse spot for the finals? If you're a team that tries to save the best comp for the finals, do you try to qualify with that? Then maybe the first time you watch this tournament, you'll kind of see what teams are going to do, and there's probably going to be some drama or like at least interest, viewer narrative and interest around that. The thing that I find weird about it is like I feel like most people are going to just want to qualify unless there's a lot of very good things that are pretty close to each other. And then you're just going to end up seeing worse keys on the last day because you're seeing people unable to play the best things. I mean, we all know why this is a thing. The casual MDI viewer that shows up for 2 minutes and is like, oh, Z, same comp every dungeon, everyone's running the same team, and then they leave. And then everyone just keeps doing that. Like, that's why this exists, right? Well, sure.
There's more of a reason than ever before because there's no affixes anymore. Like at TGP level keys, there's literally nothing else that can differentiate a run from another run, right?
Yep.
Like,
yep.
So I could see why now would be the time to do it, especially.
I think it'd be fun to watch the first one for sure.
Yeah.
And then if it's not great, maybe they'll iterate on it. I mean, I've always thought something like this could be cool. Like I tried to do like a community TGP thing. I didn't end up following through with it, but like the idea, well, like I'm not gonna like super go into it, but basically the idea would be that like you'd have different comps from the best teams in every dungeon. And I thought that would have made it interesting just to see why they chose this things that they did. That'd just be an extra level of interest. But it's really hard to force people to do that. My version had them having every class, the really good classes cost 5 points and the really bad ones cost 1 and everything in between. And you only had 15 points to spend. And each team would probably value certain things differently. Maybe this person mains a class that costs 3 points. So for them, it's really value. Like that stuff would be really cool. But like Blizzard's not going to arbitrarily put a point value next to any of their classes because like they make them and they should be balanced, right? I guess. So,
Yeah.
So like that.
Imagine you were playing
right?
one of the 1 point classes. That image would be in that class Discord perma. Yeah.
Like, can't they also just like make points based off of how played something is?
Yeah, they could. And there are systems you could do where you ban like one weekend, you ban whatever was played the most in the previous weekend or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think there are definitely other ways to do it as well. Yeah.
I think there's another issue too. And Dratnos, I think, has brought this up in the past when the few of you who've remained for our MDI discussions have heard. When it comes to multi-classing, I think another thing people have thought is like, oh, well, when you have to play a bunch of different specs, that actually makes this random team who plays less meta things like the ability to compete. And you sweet summer child, that is so not like how much better the best teams are going to be than the lower teams when it also involves the ability to multi-class things. They're way better when everyone's playing their mains. When you're adding multi-classing, they're like way better, right? So it's going to make it even like less inclusive.
Yeah.
There could be a team that signs up that's playing the current meta comp for the patch because they have, I don't even know what the meta comp is right now. I'm just going to say they have a like mage player or a moonkin player, but that dude doesn't play alts. So whenever that thing gets cut after the first day, they're cooked, and you're watching a suboptimal team with things they can't play on the last day, So like, I don't know. I think there's some downsides, but hell, it's better than not, right? Are we all there? It's better than running it back the same shit, or no?
Yeah, this feels half baked for sure, the whole format. But so here's what I'll say. From a viewer perspective, it's probably going to be significantly more interesting. Although I do wish it was in the global finals instead of. So this is only in the
worth
cups.
noting it's only in the group weekends.
Yeah, and they kind of like. It's like you were saying, Max, how like a lot of people were just going to play to qualify. So if there's not as much at stake to just like playing pretty standardly. Whereas, if it was in the global finals, that completely changes the whole story, right? Like you're going against the best players in the world and you're having to like strategize how you play your comp. So that's like one part of it. And then from the player perspective, like if I were to compete in this, it probably sucks more than it is good. So the barrier to entry to doing MDI is going to be significantly higher because you're just going to have to put in way more practice time figuring out how to play these comps with a certain strategy. Just figuring out how to play the class alone is going to be a huge deal. Like you said, if some people only play Enhancement Shaman, for example, then they're kind of boned. And for just like the whole figuring, I don't know, I have to see it myself. Like I don't know how I would strategize this personally. I haven't like been in that situation where I'm like thinking, do I play this comp or do we play this comp instead?
Yeah, I think what you do is you do some like juggling if you can, where you shift around, so you play like 4 out of 5 of the good specs, and you kind of cycle which good spec because especially this season, there's a couple of close replacements you could do. So you could do a lot of work to still have your good comp, and also save your best specs, and like be banning 3 specs you don't care about banning for the last day. It's worth noting that they're looking at every run that you do, as long as it improves your scorecard somehow. So what you could do is you could just play a shitter comp for the lower level key, whatever they give you to start, right? And then, cycle in 4/5 of the good comp for the actual push keys at each level or in each dungeon. And then you could easily end up banning 3 specs that you don't care about that way. So, but even the decision to do that is going to cost you some time relative to just playing your strongest stuff. And if there are 2 teams that are close together, maybe you just play your strongest stuff and you're like, yeah, we're going to lose on Sunday. I at least think that will be interesting to watch at least once, right? Like at least for a couple, for one weekend, I think it'll be great. And then maybe we look at it and we're like, okay, actually, this isn't the best way to do a class rule. But
Now that it's not in the global finals, I actually kind of like that. The reason why is it's possible, it's fun to watch in the group stages, and then it's like, well, this kind of stinks, and they're not beholden to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just like a little put their feelers out, little test.
Yeah, it's experimental for sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm a huge fan of experimentation to the point that even if I think an experiment is bad as well, I'll always be happy that they're doing it if it's the first time they're experimenting with anything. But I think that this is a good experiment on the merits as well. Although I will say it's probably not exactly how I would have done a class stacking or like a class diversity rule if I was doing it, but I think it's still a pretty good implementation.
How would you do it?
I would do like you ban a specific spec per dungeon and you just ban some meta specs in each dungeon and you announce that like the week before or whatever. You're like, okay, no VDH in Floodgate, you know.
You mean like
no
Blizzard does it?
No Disc
or
Priest
like
in Cinderbrew. Yeah,
No,
I would do
Blizzard
it like I would
does
have
it.
Blizzard do it and announce it as part of the map pool that like this spec is banned in this dungeon or something like that. I think that's how I would want to start out.
One thing that kind of gets me there is, the reason you're doing, not to say there isn't other reasons to do this, but I feel like the reason Blizzard is doing this is because of the chatters.
Right.
And aren't you going to get the same thing? Okay, you ban Vengeance CH, everyone just plays next best thing. So it's just
but
same thing.
The big thing for the chatters is like the nuclear case for chatters is when they tune in and they're looking at like in TGP or whatever, it's 4 teams and all 4 of them are playing the exact same comp. And this would go a long way towards making that not something that, because remember the biggest chatters are like on this are the ones that are like the least engaged and tuning in only briefly and looking. So even just kind of like putting your finger on the scale to make it so that people in different dungeons are going to have different comps from each other would go a long way toward like you literally wouldn't tune in and see all the teams on the same comp.
Can I throw maybe a side thing here? I could be totally wrong.
Yeah.
But okay, let's say the person who comes in, watches the stream for 15 seconds, sees the same comp and is like, boring, same comp, and then leaves. Okay, so let's say everyone's running a different comp. Do you think that person is watching the MDI for any longer than they were anyway?
Maybe not. But the chatter experience for the people who are watching at least gets better.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I think you can please. I think you're trying to please people that don't matter. Is my point.
That's always been the argument that we've made whenever, like back in the past when Blizzard wasn't doing this. I think all of us were on team. There are a lot of ways to do this that would be a lot worse than doing nothing, right?
So I think what would create hype factor is if you can get a team to just like pull out some wild card and just make everyone pog out. And the best example I can use of this is when we played in our first MDI against Echo, and we just like pulled out like Prompt Paladin,
Arms Warrior TG or Arms Warrior Theater of Pain, yeah.
And then people were just like, "Holy shit!" You know, like this is fucking sick to watch. Like that's the type of excitement or scenario that they would need to create, and I don't know how they can exactly do that.
Yeah, I also think that would be hype, but it's also a case like how do you do that besides the way that it happened with the Arms Warrior, which is literally just have a game that's like closely balanced enough that some main of a spec can identify a cool niche for it.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, they did do a pretty good job balancing the season, so there's definitely a lot more interesting choices.
Okay. That can conclude our MDI discussion. Welcome back, everybody who skipped
Well, actually,
the
also, I will
chapter.
say one more thing is...
Never mind.
It is going to be... Something you didn't mention is they're completely removing MDI. I don't know if you guys know this, but...
It's just the TGP this season.
format.
Yeah.
So that's all.
That makes sense. So, like, I think in history, if you're going to look at the MDIs that were, and MDI or TGP, just the dungeon tournaments that were the most hype, it's kind of an equal amount of MDIs and TGPs outside of the few early MDIs where it was like really new. Like I remember the mandatory Echo Halls of Valor ending and the MDI was sweet, but like really it wasn't the MDI that made that sweet. It was just that it was really close. It was 2 teams being very closely competing and, you know, going down to a game 5 or whatever. But like a TGP has everything. I think the TGP, I think we all kind of agree, it just has more upside. It's also just infinitely more relatable to the watcher. It's things that people do. People do high keys. People don't do, like people can do if people are doing an 18 in the TGP, some crazy shit. Maybe someone in the chat has done a 16 or a 15 and they're like, wow, that's fucking crazy. Like, cause it was hard for me to do this 15.
they're doing that much more damage, and they're living this mechanic that like kills us every time. But like when people are doing the MDI, they don't even know what they're watching. They're watching lower keys getting pulled like they're fucking normal dungeons at the beginning of an expansion, and they're like, I don't even, is this hard? I can tell you from doing the MDI, some of those pulls took like,
oh my god,
like full practice days in some cases on one pull. If you guys remember the Ataldazar pull,
I was thinking the Ataldazar, big pull at the
not
start.
the snap. The snap was not hard. But you had to, but that's because you used like every cooldown on the snap. After you killed Razan and you had to do the like where you would normally go into Taldazar and go left, and you would do that big pull with all of the Colossus and the Confessors. That pull with no CDs was insane. Like 7 hours of the fervent strikes of grouping it. Like that pull was so fucking hard. Like 7 hours, and then like a viewer would watch that and they're like, "Wow, snap cool." And you can't even appreciate the shit that's actually impossible because you're just focused on the visual thing, you know?
The opposite is true too. I mean, like if they see some crazy pull that actually is pretty easy to pull off, it's just like you just had a lot of cooldowns there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just think the MDI was just infinitely less relatable than the TGP. Even though it sometimes was a spectacle, I can just tell you from someone competing in it, is like oftentimes the spectacle wasn't even the thing that was hard. In like the Awakened season, it was like the kiting of that was bullshit. Like the ones where you actually pulled the 3 or 4 Awakened guys on top of the boss and lived, that was fucking impossible. That was so hard. But like all the focus was like on like the Mistweaver running in a fucking circle, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
TGP goated for sure.
I think the TGP format as well is like it's OP for always having a close finish. Unless a team is like so far ahead that they're just dominating the whole thing, which does happen sometimes, but like you could have a team that is good enough that they would smoke their competition in MDI, and it still looks close until the end in TGP, because you always have that spot where it's like, okay, if this team goes for this and one shots this run, like, yeah, never mind the fact they probably won't, but if they do, then all of a sudden they're tied again, right? Like almost always by the end of the day, there's a win condition for most teams for the last, like, going into the last hour of the day. Like, here's how they could use this last hour to win, which is very fun.
Dude, that's why I think they need to add offense in TGP. It has to be like Mario Kart, where you can just like send a
blue shell over.
Yeah, like just like stun their healer for 5 seconds. You just like send it if you're behind. That would add so much.
I mean, okay, low key, that is a nice cook. It's just the way to implement that and have it not be a complete meme is impossible.
Bro, Dratnos, just imagine you just like popping off. You're like, oh, and here goes a stun on the growl. Holy shit, we're doing the craziest pull ever, but he just got stunned for 5 seconds.
Yeah, if you ever time a world first key, or if like you get to a certain key level, you gain one of the things and you can send the shell over to another team, and then you're talking about when they're gonna do it. They have like the fucking other team's POV up on their monitor, just waiting to fucking wipe them.
Oh my god, that would be so fun.
Also be super toxic.
Yeah, that they should do that for like a charity tournament or something. That would be so fun.
It'd be so annoying to be the best team too, because like like Echo when they were in their prime, like literally every team's gonna be stunning them on every fucking dude. They would lose their mind.
Yeah, have you seen now? He like did a blindfolded raid where people were just like playing fart noises giga loud using his donos, so he couldn't hear what was going on. Yeah, something like that would be very funny. Okay. Let's do our Patreon question. Our Patreon question this week comes from Ryan that says, if you had a chance to modernize one raid boss to today's mythic standard, which would it be and why? And I have a follow-up question for this, which is mostly for Max, I guess. How far back in history do you think you'd have to go for Gallywix to be a hard mythic end boss?
Oh, that's fascinating.
That was the question I wrote down, but it relates to this Patreon question well.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's answer the first one first. That second one is going to be really fucking interesting, though.
Okay.
I mean, my answer is like publicly known for this, but like, because I've been like begging, like when Kurog wasn't good, I was just like, they could have made it Lei Shen and they fucked it up. And Gallywix, actually, I think there's a version of Gallywix that could have been Lei Shen. So yeah, I want them to redo Lei Shen. They haven't done it. It's just the perfect mixture of a fight progressing in difficulty and also doing area denial at the same time. You get rid of one side of the room
now that mechanic is empowered forever. It gives choice. Admittedly, it would be much cooler to do a boss like this off stream rather than streamed Raced World first, because everyone will just like do the thing that everyone else is doing. Where when you saw like the top 5 guilds kill it and then Lei Shen died, you would see the videos of the top 5 guilds and like everyone did it in a different order, because there'd be a reason why you could do all of them. And that was really cool. Another reason it'd be nice to modernize it is because the intermissions on Lei Shen fucking sucked. They were terrible. They'll like spread out into different corners and like soak some shit and like be AFK. That shit was bad. But you can modernize that for sure. So another reason to modernize it was to make the only bad part of the fight good. But I don't know, just like think of Gallywix. It so easily could have been Lei Shen. There's 4 sides of the circle. The ones that you and the Mythic doesn't start with one of them already gone. You have to remove more of them more quickly. And the enrage of the fight isn't just some random fight timer. It's when you run out of room, kind of as it's theorized in like normal and heroic, maybe if you were to live long enough. And that and everything you get rid of makes his if you get rid of this corner, his suppression gets bigger. If you get rid of this corner, the healing absorbs way bigger. If you get rid of this corner, just whatever, another one. Are there's only 2 mechanics? I have no idea. Like there's probably another couple of mechanics in that fight. Those get bigger. That could have been that. So I would love to see that modernized. I'm not sure about what you guys think.
That's a good answer. Yeah, Dorki, do you have any? And it doesn't have to be. I guess it does. It does have to be a WoW one. Although if you have I know you played some other MMOs, so if you have any fights from anywhere else as well, feel free to get creative with your answer if you want.
Personally, I feel kind of like the opposite. I would rather see some of the modern bosses kind of like dialed back, classified. Yeah. Because like to me, I feel like there are just too many swirlies in a lot of fights. I've complained a lot about swirlies. I prefer if there were less swirlies on some fights. Like I don't mind having some fights where like, all right, you do the mechanic and then there's just not 50 billion swirlies for the dodge during that.
Isn't that literally Gallywix is literally just like, I'm going to spam 700 swirlies at you during suppression?
Yeah, you're talking about like the
Yeah.
Dude, by the way, Gallywix swirlies are bullshit. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. Like the one where you can tank or like you're like supposed to tank. Like the ones after blazes usually, where it's just like I feel like it's impossible.
Oh yeah,
maybe I'm crazy, but like I swear, if I get
the little ones that come out after the bombs.
Yeah, it's like big red circles, kind of. That's
yeah,
not really little, but it's like red circles where like.
I have a hack for you.
You're supposed to kind of tank.
Those tend to not go where the big circles were. So that you're talking about the P2 ones?
No. Like throughout the entire fight.
Okay.
I guess most of P1.
Yeah, they come out in P1 after the big red tank circle, and they come out in P2 after the spread medium-sized red circles on everybody, on random people. They won't go where those circles were. So they will try and go in the spaces that were empty.
It's not that is true, but you're missing the mechanism of why that happens. So they spawn, they're Dathia random. The reason I refer to as Dathia random is I believe this is the first raid boss, so this is ever true. We were trying to like bait the tornadoes, and we couldn't figure out why some of them went to us and some other ones went other places. And it's because literally half of them were baited on you, and half of them were purely random. So they're Dathia random. Half of those bombs are baited on players, and half are not. And the big circles are where you can't be standing unless you want to get that debuff. So the bombs pick their location when those things go off, and obviously you shouldn't be stacked in them. So you're just moving to a place where you cannot possibly bait them. So there's an extremely low chance that it could happen. Half of them, or roughly half of them, are random. So you could get them, but yeah, that's why that happens.
Interesting. I thought it was more a case of like each circle spawned some, and it would never spawn it within itself. But I could see, yeah, that makes sense as well. Either way, though, the hack is just move into where one of the circles just was, and you
can also see them on the ground before they go red.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still not sure if we're talking about the same mechanic.
I think we are, yeah. You're talking about like the little bombs that explode.
Are you talking about the suppression red circles? That's the only other red circle that you could be talking about.
No.
Yeah, the delayed boom explosion thing.
It's like it's at the same time as blazes, kind of Dorky. There's like the big red circles everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the same ones. So those spawn. You can actually see them. So as soon as those little circles go off in pizza, or like the bigger circles, there's like 5 of them. I think there's exactly 5 of them. You will see like little small bombs go all over the platform if you watch a VOD, and then they will turn red right before they blow up. But you can actually see them for like, I want to say like almost 5 seconds before they turn red. You know where they'll be.
Okay.
Yeah, that fight is very much swirlies and bombs and stuff, which I could understand wanting the era of WoW when there was less of those, I guess. Yeah. I always enjoy dodging a good swirly, but playing tank makes it easier because I don't have to. I do it as a hobby. Sometimes.
Yeah, they have to they've made thousands of like bosses at this point, including dungeons and raids. So you have to come up with some consistent elements that you can use between them to add difficulty. And swirly is one of them that I think is pretty respectable. I think as long as you don't overuse it, a swirly on every boss makes sense.
Yeah, I don't mind swirly. It just feels a little bit excessive nowadays. So like when I'm just playing Boom King, I just want to cast sometimes and not be completely.
Maybe they
fucking
overdid
bogged
it
down by
this raid because they came out with the new swirly system, so they're like, "Fuck it, we can just do swirlies now because it's obvious where they are."
Yeah,
I would choose Lich King, iconic fight. You know, very poggers.
What about Lich King? Just like you would want to see an iconic character like Lich King get a modern raid fight? Yeah,
exactly. Like, I mean, it has some mechanics that have been, like, Defile is kind of an interesting one that I guess they brought back on Jailer, but it's not especially interesting. It's just don't stand in it, or else we've come up with a creative new way that it's really bad to stand in it. But, like, I just want the flavor of that fight. You know, you're fighting on top of the castle, and, like, he freezes and then removes and refreezes the edges of the room. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I will say.
Go ahead, Dorki.
So I don't really have an old raid to really look back to because I didn't really raid back in the day. But I will say, like, I do want something more cinematic for sure.
Ooh.
Okay.
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Well, just exactly like what Dratnos said, right? Like the whole idea
you
of
just
like
want some epic shit.
I want some epic shit. It's been a long time since we had some epic shit.
Is it just like because of nostalgia and that it's like the best WoW character and it can never be replaced though? Like I'm just saying, like what does cinematic mean? Like what?
Gul'dan was cinematic too, right? And Argus,
Definitely.
right? Like the fucking red sides cover the whole room, and that was you die and get rezzed on Argus, and then Gul'dan is like
just
ripping a
grand.
hole in space time and sucking you towards the edge, and then Illidan's in the crystal and comes down at the end. Like those are all things where you could literally just describe the story of the fight, and it's like, holy shit, this is so cool. And
Yeah, because if you look at the recent history fights, it doesn't feel that way. Jailer
like,
could have been epic, but like just it doesn't look epic. You know, you're just in like some room and Azeroth's in like the middle or something. Like I don't even know what the hell was happening.
It's obviously not Azeroth, right? It's like it's a little circle thing.
Do you think it's a coincidence that all of the fights and characters you just named are like super iconic WoW characters, and it's possible that there's just a finite amount of those?
Yeah,
there's
like
a lot of really
too.
fucking cool raid fights, you know, and it's like Blackhand, but there's another one really iconic WoW character, right? So like Blackhand was also really cinematic. Archimonde.
Well, Blackhand wasn't like an iconic. I guess he was. It was an iconic WoW character.
Archimonde was a super fucking crazy looking last phase. That fight was like awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
How much is this though? Like these people have epic and cinematic fights, and therefore we remember them more than. Like that makes them the epic character.
Oh, that makes them the epic character. Well, Lich King was certainly predefined, but
Lich King was. But like when you think about a fight like Blackhand, for instance, if that fight was stupid instead of like awesome, how much would that change our memories of Blackhand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, same with like Enzoth or Gahun, right? They are kind of
those are epic-ish
bosses, but
N'Zoth in particular, like that's an epic lore character, and then the fight is definitely a little bit less. You know, you go to the heart chamber.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Come out like that was a version of them trying to make that happen, and it wasn't as cool.
And it's not like they couldn't have made these bosses cool too. Like they could have made Farak do some crazy shit, but he's just kind of like a little Drakthir the entire time. He just does some attacks and he transforms into a big dragon. And
but they did something cinematic recently, bro. Cauldron of Carnage. Holy fuck!
That's true.
That is cinema.
No real. That it's just like cinematic difficult end boss is a.
Yeah, it's a good point. You'd have to go and look back as to like when was the last one and why did they stop happening. There's been a lot of like non-end bosses that have been cinematic. They're like Star Augur, while very difficult, was also just like the way it looked was just like very finite. I mean,
Rygolon was awesome. Rygolon was fucking sick.
Rygolon in that way, you're like running out of room, and like and anytime you like feel like you're racing to the finish, there's like a cast that just kills all of you. There's a few of those this year actually. Very
Muggsy has that, and Bandit. Both of them do like a long ass cast before you wipe at the end. Gallywix even, although it doesn't actually wipe you when it finishes the cast, it finishes the cast and then nothing happens for 2 seconds. You're like, what?
Okay, and then speaking of Gallywix, you asked me when was the last. Sorry, can you rephrase? When was the last time Gallywix would have been a difficult end?
Yeah, like if you could go back in time and insert Gallywix in like Gul'dan spot, would the Raiders at the time have been like, this is so
I would say
hard, right?
Shadowlands.
That's
my
interesting.
opinion.
You think Shadowlands? You think if we
Before
replaced Jailer?
Sepulchre.
Okay, so
Before
we're
Okay.
we're trying to gauge two things. So basically, just for people who are listening, like some people might have heard that and just gone crazy. You're trying. So gamers have gotten a lot better over time, and you can be like, oh, like I play this game now, and I play this game in Legion. And I remember doing like KJ, and it was super hard, bro. If you just for the sake of argument, if you were to do KJ now, you and anyone you were playing with there and now would just completely smoke those bosses. Like raiding is so much harder, players are so much better as a result. Those two things kind of go hand
So
in
much
hand.
more resources.
Yeah, there's so much
Right.
more resources. Yeah, like so you were basically tasked with like trying to guess how much players have gotten better over time. I can't say about the general community because I'm kind of detached from that, but I can say for the race world first that like specifically from BFA to like, I mean now, but even BFA to like the end of Dragonflight, middle of Dragonflight, the every single tier the guilds were getting like noticeably better. They were recruiting better and better players. So like if you're comparing old race world firsts to like Gallywix, and you had to figure the boss out too, is that an element that matters? Or are you talking about like your all's experience with it? I don't know, but Shadowlands, no. I mean, if you had this instead of like Sylvanas, I don't know about Shadow. Like, what does difficult end boss mean? What do you mean by that? Like suitable?
Yeah, would people have found it harder? Would it have had a higher or lower pull count than Sylv? Right, if it had been in that spot.
Sylvanas was harder. It would have even gauging for time. Man, I've said this before, but I really think Circlet and Gallywix are like very similar. First kill, like pull counts say that to be true, but also just in general. And we're also way better now than we were on Circlet too. I want to say for sure Legion. Like 100% if Gallywix is an end boss in Legion, that's not something people are going to look back on and be like, this was so much easier than the rest of those bosses. It would have been like pretty normal. When we're getting to BFA,
bosses weren't that hard too.
Yeah, well, they were like, that's the thing. Like Gahoon was like 300 pulls or something like that. Like, dude, Gahoon would get Astro
it would be
shit
20
on.
pulls.
It would get Astro shit on by today's guild. So like, I think probably Gahoon, Jane, I don't know. Eternal Palace was so weird because like hundreds of those pulls were just on an unkillable phase. N'Zoth, man, there's really not a lot going on in N'Zoth, man. Like it's not that hard. Like it's like end of BFA, but I don't want to say beginning of Shadowlands. I don't know. I feel like the guilds, at least if we're talking world first, got so much better then.
Yeah, I mean even like Castle Nafria boss, whatever his name is like, hell, that boss was still pretty easy compared to Gallywix.
Sire Denathrius was 130 pulls, right? Like only 30 more pulls than World First Gallywix. But Massacre was just harder than everything on Gallywix alone.
Is that true? I don't feel like Massacre.
Massacre was fucking hard, man.
It was just
Yeah,
hard
they
to
slowed
see,
it down
but, like,
a lot for one of the nerfs, right?
Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe I didn't really catch the nerfs, but
you basically, so the reason, like most end bosses die for world first, and then people kill them in less time than that because it's nerfed by gear. But Gallywix Massacre was the great equalizer. You could not kill Denathrius until the worst player in your guild was going to consistently live Massacre in P2 and P3.
okay. To be fair, though, I do feel like Massacre was hard as fuck to see.
Yeah,
that's
true. Visual clarity
part of
was
the difficulty. That's part of why that's part of why Webblades was probably the hardest mechanic ever. Was like the animation of the line going away and it still being able to do damage to you, right?
But it was just like straight up hard to see because that was during the era of like it was red on red.
Yeah, red on red.
It was just like impossible to see.
That's real shit though. It was also just really fast. This is really fast. Like you could just make a decision of like I'm going to be safe here, and then it's not, and then you have no way out and you die, and it's a one shot. I don't know if they ended up nerfing that. I was actually thinking about that.
I'm pretty sure they nerfed speed of Massacre. I think maybe I'm hallucinating.
I mean, if they did, that would have been like the biggest nerf to that fight because like gear nerfed the fuck out of that fight. Oh, dude. Also, another thought. That was that tier, and Sylvanas was the last tier where we had damage stops in farm and progression.
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed that those are back?
Yeah. They're
No,
back
for the
uh,
first time in like 4 years.
Bandit has a massive damage stop as well. Like if
Wait,
you do
what's the
Bandit
damage stop?
faster, it's so cringe.
Yeah, because the order that everyone's used for us in progression, which by the way we're about to change on farm
Yeah.
for this exact reason, is you do shock and flame last and shock and bomb fifth. But when you push the last phase on Mythic, it puts both of those coils directly in the center of the room, and that really sucks. So you have to wait until the 6th ads die and you dunk the 6th thing. The alternative is you have to come up with a completely different order, which we will be doing shortly. But yeah, it's
I didn't even know that. But that's definitely
Yeah.
not the last time, because there was that Dragonflight second tiers. What was the boss before Sakharov?
Echo of
Echo of
Neltharion?
Neltharion.
Yeah,
Why
that
would you
guy
wait?
had stop
Why would you
damage.
wait on?
Well, you couldn't damage him below a certain amount, right? When the oh no, you could, right?
Yeah, you
You
wanted
needed
to
to
wait
like kill
until
all the
he
P2
did
ads
his,
before
like,
you.
Oh,
Something like
this
that.
is deep into farm. Yeah, so it phased into P3 when you got him to a certain HP percentage, or when you killed enough ads. But if you phased him before that 3rd ad died, I think maybe something happened. But basically, you're talking about like this used to be here's the reason why. What happened with phases in the past, and they're just bringing back, is it would be like this phase starts at 40%. This phase starts at 70%, like Denathrius or One Armed Bandit or Muggsy. They didn't do those for years because specifically Venthir Moonkin, actually, because like usually you would just like fuck around, like who cares? But the fact that Venthir Moonkin existed meant that you were gonna wait because it's like so powerful. And then they just stopped making it forever because the feedback was stopping damage sucks. So now they do the Sarkareth phases, right? Where the phase is 2 minutes long and then it ends. P1 Gallywix on Heroic. The phase is 2 minutes long and then it ends. And then it moves on to the next one. And there are damage thresholds, but they're really, really like...
Yeah, you can't hit them unless you're way over gearing the fight on Mythic.
Yeah, exactly. So like
Yeah.
that's how they've designed fights almost exclusively for the last 3 years. And now they're kind of back. And I can tell you from a little bit of farm, damage stopping feels just as bad. And I'm not sure I'm a big fan of it being back.
Yeah. Do
Also,
you remember
not
they
being able to
nerfed
left on full
Sire?
sucks.
They literally nerfed the damage stop on Sire. They were like, okay, it pushes at a lower percent now and also does 15 more seconds before pushing, right? They like simultaneously nerfed the time and
Yeah, because you would wait like
Yeah.
a long time. Like you'd be stopping damage on Denathrius for like 30 plus seconds. A question: what's the worst damage stop that you guys can remember? Because I can remember one, and it's not even close. It's in BFA.
I feel like they're
Kel'Thuzad for
all
me.
equally
Oh
bad.
no, it's in BFA.
Oh, it's a cool P1?
Yeah, it's a cool P1.
Yeah, but
Dude.
Kel'Thuzad, you did it 7 times over the course of the fight.
True. Maybe Kel'Thuzad's worse actually. Yeah,
'Cause the
'cause you had
cool
to
was
wait
literally
for all
just
your 3
P1.
minutes to come back. Yeah,
Yeah. They're both atrocious.
yeah.
I feel like
Dude,
the
Sakul,
one
I was
in,
playing an Ellie Shaman on Sakul and I meleeed that boss 50 times in P1. I was in Ghost Wolf form, just I was scratching that thing up. I was doing big damn.
the one I hate is Zymox, because it just
Mm.
completely changes the fight. It's like you actively
Yeah.
grief the hell out of your raid if you do too much damage.
Push early.
Whereas like other fights, you can kind of manage if something bad happens.
Yeah, that's a good com. That was a good one as well.
All right, damn.
All
Are
right.
we just long podcasters now?
I
Wait,
think
hold
we
on, one
might
more
be.
thing. Dratnos,
Oh,
what did you
let's
want to
fucking-
say about the whole? You said you had something you want to talk about.
Yeah, I had the-
What does that mean?
He already did.
That was my question. Was like if you replaced Gallywix with any of these other bosses, or like how far back in time would you have to go for it to be hard, or like a harder end boss than any of
I
these
see.
I don't know
ones
about it.
that were
I think another thing that's interesting about that is enjoyable. But the thing is, it sounds like a lot of people have enjoyed Gallywix. They haven't walked away saying that they hated this. I think there's a certain
Well, not
guild
many people
rank-
have reached there yet, so
Yeah.
we'll have to wait to see.
And I think there's a lot of guilds at the top that just expect a challenge. They're
Yeah.
playing the game to be challenged in rating, and they got to a boss, an end boss that's supposed to do that, and it did do that.
like the reaction from your guild and my guild was like laughing at this fight, right? Where
Yeah,
you,
exactly.
like you see the THD screen, but like in my guild as well. On pull 37, we reached phase 2 for the first time, and we brought the boss to 27% HP, and we were just like, you know, there obviously we knew it was that easy. We knew that Echo killed it in 50 pulls or whatever, but like we were there doing the phase, and it's just like, is it really this easy? And like obviously it's not going to be that easy for everybody, but I think that the fact that it can be, depending on when you kill Muggsy and all this stuff, Muggsy may have been way harder because that's a way more gear dependent fight. So over time, Muggsy's getting easier faster than Gally's getting easier for sure. But because Gally doesn't have a check on it in the same way that Muggsy does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, dude, either you guys are built diff or we just fucking suck. Because
I think it is the fact that Muggsy, I do think Muggsy is getting a lot easier than Gallywix is week over week. Like if you give me 2 item levels on Muggsy, that makes the fight dramatically easier. You give me 2 item levels on Gallywix and it doesn't really change much. Like you kind of have to still just do the exact same things to kill the boss. It's just now a little bit more lenient on a 2% wipe is now a kill. But getting to a 2% wipe is equally easy. I don't know, that's maybe it's just that, or maybe it's a fight that prep works really well on as well on Gally.
Yeah. I definitely think prep. I think there are guilds that are pretty close in skill level that will show up to a raid and be like, well, someone killed this boss with 50 pulls. It's probably easy.
Right.
And then another that still respects it and shows up and is like, well, here are some really important things to know. And they can talk about the boss for legit 15 minutes and save hours of attempts because of that 15 minutes, rather than everyone having to learn things individually. I was going to say the thing about Galaxy being enjoyable. There's something that happens in Final Fantasy. It's an interesting phenomenon that I think could really benefit WoW, and Gallywix made me think this more than anything else. There are Final Fantasy guilds that a decent amount of them, and they're not groups, they're called statics.
God, they just have to come up with some obnoxious, stupid ass words.
No, that's what we call it in a lot of games, because that's what we called it back in.
Okay, well, guess what, Dorky? Their specs are called jobs, by the way.
Okay, well, that I'm not going to agree with.
Nonsense.
But the static part is pretty normal. A lot of.
All right, Dorky, silence. All right, so
okay,
we have. He said okay. I can't believe he just ripped an okay after that.
What the stupidity?
He's just so used to it on this podcast these days.
Fucking silence. By the way, have you guys ever said silence to another adult and meant it? That's an insane thing to say. Like just in general, just fucking silence. Okay, these teams, they progress the raid blind. Ultimates, savages, but they know that information's out there, but they're like, we're gonna figure this out on our own. No one does this in WoW because it's just too hard. It's just too much time. It's just not worth it. No one wants to. People are already spending, in most cases, months doing this. Why would you make this potentially not doable in time, or it's just not an option? But if they made raiding, and I don't even know if I'm necessarily advocating for this, because this would suck for me. But if they made raiding easier, if you expected a boss like Gallywix, could a guild like yours, Dratnos, be like, you know what, we want to do this blind? Because it wouldn't take that much longer, but it would be fucking fun.
It would be so fun. I feel like Gallywix would be 200 pulls or something for us if we were doing it blind, or maybe more, but that's because we don't have the muscle to do that build.
You're not used to doing it. You're not used to doing it, but I think it'd be hard. You'd have dissenters in the guild to be like, why don't we just look up this video? You'd actually have people in the guild definitely look up the video and give suggestions, but I don't know.
I thought of this idea.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm telling you, we had so much fucking fun on Gallywix, and it's still this is a guild that we want bosses to be as hard as they can possibly be within reason. And it was still just so much fun just because we got to do that. And I just wonder if there's ever a world in WoW where it would make sense to have guilds blind progress things, because I think, man, is that just such a fun boss to do that on.
So I think you're underestimating the amount of people that actually do blind progs. I'm sure there's plenty of guilds and groups out there that blind prog.
In WoW?
But also, I think you pissed off a bunch
I've
of
never
people.
heard of one.
Wait, do you mean Final Fantasy?
In WoW? Oh, no, in WoW.
No one blind progs in
way.
WoW.
No, there's definitely guilds out there.
Huh?
I don't know.
I am personally okay. For if anyone that is in part of one of these teams, I am sorry for slandering and saying no one does this. But I actually want to know, because to my knowledge, there is literally there's not a single guild that does this in Mythic. None. And if they do, that's fucking awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And I want to know about them, and holy shit, I want to watch them progress. Please stream that. That is amazing content. But to my knowledge, no one in WoW does this in raid.
Yeah, and the second thing is, we definitely pissed off a lot of people by saying in Final Fantasy they only do it because it's easier. Because I know a lot of people who say they do it because it's fun. In fact, a lot of them are like actually liquid people. Like I know Evade and Exile, they're doing the new Raid Blind. I know
Yeah.
Sazevi, he also likes to do a lot of Final Fantasy
Yeah,
stuff.
it's normal for like high level groups in Final Fantasy to do that blind, yeah. But it is also going to take.
yeah.
But them doing that is going to take a couple weeks. If you're doing a WoW Mythic Raid blind, you're signing up for an increase of months of what you're doing. And the main reason is Final Fantasy, through Ultimates and Savages, it kind of throughout an expansion, it kind of ends up equaling like 1.5 raid tiers worth of content if you were to like WoW raid tiers of content if you were to relate it to how much time it takes to clear for World First. That's not a great metric, but it's kind of the only one that I've figured out how to use. So they're releasing, like, think of it like this, Dorki. Instead of releasing one massive raid in Final Fantasy, they're basically releasing like a couple bosses at a time. And if that's the case, I think if that was true in WoW, I think you would see more people blind progging it because it's less of a total investment. But with one massive WoW raid, it's kind of not feasible to do that.
So I think it's also because it's the only content in the game, like end game content. Because, you know, in WoW, there's like M plus and PvP. I mean, PvP is kind of a joke, but there's like, you know, other stuff that people do. Whereas like in Final Fantasy, your core gameplay is to do the bosses. So it's kind of like if you're playing Elden Ring, you know, it's kind of more fun to just do it blind, right? Because like that's the game. Whereas in WoW, raiding isn't just the game.
Right.
That's
Well,
how I see
raiding
it.
Yeah,
did
you're-
used to just be the game.
But your guild's going to
but
have
there
some
used to be a lot more
M+ers in
And
it.
people
blind
never
prog in
blind
the
prog
past.
back then.
What the hell, really? I actually don't. I mean, I don't know
No.
the history.
I
of
mean,
raiding,
dude,
but
in
that's
like
crazy.
in like WAD, ain't no fucking way where people blind raiding. No, MOP, no,
Okay,
they were
yeah.
not.
Well,
Doing
it's like the top 10 guilds or 20 guilds did, right? Because like you didn't get the video out until
yeah, top
5 guilds killed
5
it.
for end bosses because usually as
Yeah.
soon as the top 5 killed it, there would be a video. But you're right, the top like
The
6 through
guilds below them
9
had to be doing
would have
prog in
been on the
meantime.
boss. Yeah, exactly. Which also as a side conversation, that era of the game would have been a much more viable time for there to be a more competitive race world first because of that 5 guilds killing it rule. So many more guilds got to problem solve all the way up through the bosses rather than just everyone copying the top team, which is something that streaming has kind of solved. But yeah, you're right. So like a few more guilds at a time, but just the guilds that could. As soon as there's a video out, every single one of those guilds is watching it. The different culture.
Yeah, I assumed it was more of like a nowadays kind of thing. Because like on the M plus side of things, for sure, it's actually insane how quickly people pick up the new strategies. Because you know how like M plus is always evolving, right? Like people are always figuring out the new meta strategies, and people figure that shit out so fast that it's in your pugs now. Like you see pugs doing the world first China strat. Although to be fair, a lot of it is because like, you know, Tettles is always making these goddamn videos out there.
That's true. It's
the
how
world
plus
first
17
18
Rookery was
Yeah.
timed. Yeah.
Yeah, but also
Flamethrower
that's
hack?
because of that. No one's trying to blind progress Mythic Plus dungeons, only come up with their own routes and strats. That
Mhm.
everyone is kind of sharing information with each other. That you know that information is just going to be there. Like if you go to a group, they're just going to enough people are going to see what some other groups do, combine all the best things, and use it, which is also fun in itself. Like pick the things, you know.
Yeah.
Because I've
And
done
you
the
still
Final
come up with
Fantasy
tech.
thing too. The thing is like what you're signing up for in Final Fantasy with other really good players. By the way, there's a lot of people that are like, you know, mid-tier gamers that do Final Fantasy and don't do it blind because it's not really feasible. But like good players in a smaller and also the smaller group size might be an easier way to do that too, because it's easier to get 8 people to commit to doing that than 20.
100%.
But also you're signing up for, and I've done this with those people. I did T with Evade as well, like one of the at the time was like the hardest ultimate in that game. And we did that, but you were signing up for a week or two of progression. Like I think people would do that, and wow, but there's no one.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can't opt in for
we-
a week
we
of
do that.
progression.
We
Yeah.
do 2 weeks of blind progression in WoW, but like no one else is going to do that. So like it's just not really an option. It's just you're making it longer for no reason. That's what I meant by it's harder. It just takes more time because there's more things to do.
I wonder if it's also because of how much people care about guild ranks. That's gotta
I
be a
think
large
that's definitely part
right?
of it.
I
Like-
think that's part of it. Yeah, and so in Final Fantasy, there's definitely there's groups at the top that care about their ranking, but it's less after that. No one really cares. It's just like whether you've completed the content or not. And in WoW, it's always like the rank. Oh, you
Also
completed
gear.
this? What guild rank?
gear motivates people, and you get better gear the faster you clear. So like, are there going to be a lot of people like if you want to gear up in raid to do M+, are you ever going to prog blind and get less gear over time? Like,
That's a good point too. Yeah.
Exactly, and there's no M+ for Final Fantasy players to go queue up into with their gear. They just have the raid they have next week with their friends. That they're already
like
raiding with.
it feels like in WoW, people are rushed to clear as fast as possible, whereas in Final Fantasy, they're just trying to enjoy the entire journey,
Mhm.
and they're not necessarily looking to like end it right away.
True.
All right, well,
That's
speaking
officially
of
the end of our
enjoying
podcast.
the journey,
Oh.
I have enjoyed this podcast with you guys, but it must, as all things do, come to an end. We'll be back next week for another one.
Yep.
Adios.
Adios.